Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I Love Yoo Tea with Trashellie, not sponsored by Yui Hirahara. I'm Elle,
And I'm Ashley.
and this is a little podcast that you might remember from a while ago that we record in our I Love You Discord server. We like to join here and talk all things I Love You and hang out and discuss the comic. This is our first episode that we've recorded in a long time, but our second recent episode posted because our last episode had some more editing challenges than previously, and one of our incredible server members volunteered to help edit that episode. Um, as an aside related to that, for her, who we are eternally grateful for, we are using some of our previous donations to provide compensation. And we haven't talked about our coffee link in a while because, we've never been in this for that. But now that we have some other friends doing favors for us and it's resulting in higher quality content for you, we just wanted to put out a little note that if having the extra edits on the last episode is something that you liked or something that's helpful for you, if you ever feel inclined to donate, that money will be going towards services like that. This is still a low rent podcast, but we do what we can. Coming off of last week's Q&A part 1, we have some more of the questions that our community has submitted that we will be talking about tonight for our Q&A part 2.
If you're reading I Love You and the recent chapter left you blue or feeling like it's too good to be true, we get together and share our theory, bend down and praise the almighty Quimchi. Come join us for tea with Trashellie.
Thank you to all of the members in our server who have submitted all of these questions that we are going to be talking about and that we were discussing in our last Q&A episode.
Do we feel ready to get started?
I think so.
Okay. For our first question of the night, we had our user Beck submit, Shin-Ae never made that appointment for her head injury checkup. Do you think we will see more signs of brain trauma for Shin-Ae? Do you think her passing out while at the arcade in the earlier episodes was due to lack of food or something related to her injury? I just want to hear more theories and coverage on Shin-Ae's past injury and how you think it'll get brought up again or affect her moving forward.
I find this one really interesting, especially asking about the arcade, because obviously we know that in addition to having head trauma, Shin-Ae also has food scarcity and that she doesn't really eat. In fact, I think, she might have mentioned something about not really eating a lot that day, which is why she was so determined to win a game in order to actually get a good meal. Like the
Yeah,
whole reason she's
if I remember correctly, she hadn't eaten anything that day and there was nothing really waiting
yes.
for her at home.
Yes, like the whole reason she was upset about everything is because she was not going to get that meal, and that, that was the only meal she was able to count on for the night. Um so like obviously it's really easy to say that what happens during not Dance Revolution is, straight up the fact that she's malnourished. She's never like truly satiated and, she's always hungry. And then for her to expend all of the energy that she does dancing and like she's going all out at it, the moment she finds out Noel went easy on her, she's using everything she's got to try to beat him, and she's clearly doing well, you know um but we also take into account the fact that the flashing lights are getting to her, which again, this could be part of, being so famished that this is messing with her. Ultimately, it could just be like a combination of both things. I fully admit I don't know enough about brain trauma and head injuries to know how much this could affect her and how much, it could play into the you know, if she's out here playing this dancing game and she's got these blinding flashy lights in her face, could that be something that would, you know, cause her to pass out as a result of her brain injury? Because like obviously, you know, flashing lights can cause a myriad of issues for a lot of people, even if you're not like really epileptic, right? You know, you can get, it can cause headaches for people. It, you know, just a lot of things like that. So at least with that particular instance, it's really hard to be able to tell. And, you know, that's probably intentional. I do, or do you want to say something else?
No, you keep going.
Okay. Obviously, I do think we are going to see things related to the trauma just because two nasty falls and, you know, like two bouts of head trauma is that's nothing to snub your nose at, right?
And
Um,
I do think that the fact that we get that paperwork from her about,
mhm,
not following up, and the fact that she's had multiple head injuries, multiple serious falls, is there for a reason. Like it's something that's come up, and it's something that already has come up. Like that's so much of why she failed her exams. That's part of how she's
mhm.
ending up in Yui's clutches. Yet Hansuke mentioned it explicitly. I'm trying to like quickly scrub through the episode to see if I can pull up the paperwork. If anyone finds it before me, feel free to send it. Cat. Um,
And we
yeah, and I
definitely see it in just the way that she responds in situations. You know, there's a lot of times where readers will clock things and be like, she can't be that stupid almost, you know?
and
And
it's
it's
like
like,
she's got she's got head injuries. She's got a history of head injuries.
right.
And the first one did damage, absolutely.
Hmm.
But it seems like it's really like the second one
Yeah.
is the one that's
Like it's
really
shaken. Yeah. It's like it's shaken up her processing ability and made things worse.
yeah. And with the first one, she was in the hospital for a long time. So that one did get treated. And we get the impression that that's why they
Yes.
have so much debt. Um,
Right.
oh, the paper was in episode 67. Thank you. Um, where it affected her probably like mild to moderately. And then after that, there's more. So, like, is it possible that her head injury made her weaker and more susceptible to that overexertion and exhaustion from essentially working out while having had nothing to eat all day and being chronically food insecure? Maybe, but it
Hmm.
probably wasn't a primary cause of that.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's like after the second fall is when we really start to see those effects and how we're going to start seeing more ramifications of it. And just, you know, especially for not having done that follow up and the things that she doesn't know could be issues caused by it. We know that her sleep is affected. And again, this is one of those things where we see that it kind of has those double possibilities, right? Because obviously the bad dreams and the sleep being affected could be the whole I've found out that somebody's been stalking me and broke into my house. But we also see when she's in the hospital with Rika watching over her father that it's straight up insomnia. She full on cannot sleep. And obviously, that's something that, if it continues that way, will have continued long term effects on her because a girl's got to sleep.
Yeah, I think it's basically like her second head injury in particular, physically speaking, is exacerbating a lot of these things that she would already be struggling with, but might be able to cope with. Where, like, would she be having sleep troubles with everything she's going through? Most likely. Would she be up all night with insomnia? Maybe not. Would she still be impulsive and sometimes a little irritable um, without the head injury? Yes. Would she be to that degree? Does Would she process kind of slow without the head injury? From the middle school flashback, we see maybe a little, but would she be as slow as she is? Probably not. So it's
Right.
really just like it's putting an amplification on a lot of these things that are already struggles for her.
And in terms of, how this is going to come up again moving forward, we know that Shin-Ae is going to very likely be put into stressful situations. Very recently, we had been discussing within our own server possibilities of how Shin-Ae is going to wind up taking Yui's offer at all. And a lot of our ideas always come back to that in some way she's going to do it to protect Shimhan. Whether it's that Yui does something sneaky and underhanded and gets him to essentially take the offer on Shanae's behalf without knowing everything, or, she's forcing Shanae's hand. The point is, it takes us back to what you were saying earlier about Shanae's, how she just makes these very quick decisions without always thinking things through, or because she's a little slower on processing and on the uptake, not always being able to see that bigger picture and getting trapped in situations. But especially once she's in this and, once she's actually trapped in Yui's gift, we'll call it, having to navigate that world and deal with the kind of people that she's going to be interacting with. Because, obviously one of the things about Yui's offer is it's not just that she's going to be putting her into school. She's obviously going to want to try to quote quote help Shin-Ae navigate this world. Really, help her make the right connections, help her do networking, and we know it's going to be with the kind of people that Yui really affiliates with. And again, these are the kind of people who Shin-Ae isn't as very savvy with yet. And I think those are places where that processing deficiency, I'll call it, can come into play.
Yeah. I don't know that I have much to add. I agree. And I think that it's like we said, it's basically going to be I think her processing is going to be the biggest thing that comes up. Like I don't think we're going to see as much physical issue as
Mm-hmm.
issue in processing the world around her and responding appropriately.
Right. And because you mentioned it, and just to address the rumors that do exist, do you think anything traumatic, or not really traumatic, do you think Shanae's brain injuries will cause any serious or fatal issues to her?
I don't think so. Um one of our members
Exactly,
said
Red.
death.
Yes, death.
I don't think so because I think that we've seen all of these cognitive signs, but we
Mhm.
haven't really seen it physically affect her. Like even like we haven't really seen like the dizziness or the light sensitivity really brought up, which those are physical effects. We've kind of seen that brushed off. We can assume she was having them and she looked awful, but that wasn't focused on. But what was
Right,
focused on was like her going to the exams the next day and not being able to focus on the content and not passing.
right. I mean, I'm with you too. I've never really seen a vision of I Love You involving Shanae dying. She's like our main girl, and it doesn't make sense to me for I Love You to go that direction. We know Kimchi likes to subvert things, and we know that she doesn't like cliche endings, and we've been told it will be bittersweet, but I don't think Shanae essentially being sacrificed narratively makes a lot of sense for the story that we have set up and that we're being told. Um, but also, like you said, also narratively, we don't have signs that we're going that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I know that there are people who, think that way. So I just wanted to bring it up because, what are our takes on that?
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think that it narrowly gives us much. I think the
Mm-hmm.
processing issues give us a lot, both in terms of the types of situations and conflicts that we have, as well as that being the like scar that she carries from the event, because all of this stuff is so deeply emotional for her, where like her physical health has always been a problem. And it's always been something that she's had to be fighting for, and like is kind of working against her, and something that she's always felt insecure in.
Yes.
But her emotional wellness is something that has been more of a like dissonance for her, and more of a turmoil, and something that she's been more betrayed on, rather than has always been like a point of insecurity. And
Right.
she's been so strong through that for so long, and then getting the head injury and that affecting her processing and her schoolwork and her like activities that she enjoys and her friends and her ability to network and her ability to succeed in the ways that she's been had as goals for her whole life is a much more impactful scar, especially considering that the event is she made this like really important friend, her first friend seemingly ever, and it ended with her falling out the window, and that resulting in all of those emotional and cognitive long-term effects feels much more meaningful than really any physical health issue could, because she already has those.
Right. And especially like you were saying of the dissonance, something we see especially of all memories in I Love You is that no memory is perfect and infallible. And especially in Shin-Ae's case, she does not know that she can actually trust her memories. And obviously that's really important in regards to the memory of what happened between her and her first friend. She can't trust that she remembers what happened, that she interpreted what happened, that her brain didn't just make up everything to fill in a blank. Um, Also, because we were speaking narratively reasons. When we're speaking about subversions and subversions especially of tropes, Shin-Ae having this cognitive issue rather than it leading to a death that doesn't fit the narrative. Shin-Ae having this processing issue is more in line with the subversion of shoujo, where very
Mhm.
often you sometimes have this lead who, God bless her little heart, just, you know, there's things laid out right in front of her and she just doesn't see them. And the plot tries really hard to give you reasons, but very often it comes across feeling very contrived. Whereas here in I Love You, what's happening is we're kind of placing Shin-Ae in that role where, there are kind of obvious things in front of her. For example, Yui, Rand being Noel's father and looking just like him, and her having this moment where she's very inebriated and she makes this connection that he looks like, Noel if he was older or something like that. But she's
And
not consciously able to grasp this, and it has a reason for her to be, a little, I'm going to use the word ditzy, that's not really it, but for the sake of the shoujo trope, it places her in that kind of role while subverting it because
there's
there's
a
actually
there's a
narrative.
physical reason.
Right. Right, like
And
absent-minded.
so
I mean, to be fair, in the shoujo, I guess they are meant to be absent-minded girls. It's very often for like plot purposes because we can't let things roll too fast. The whole like, oh, doki doki doki, why?
and with Shanae, the thing about Rand and Yui being uh Kosuke's parents and Rand being Noel's
Hmm.
dad is actually a really great example of how Kimchi is using this, because when she's at Kosuke's apartment the first time, she does pick up his graduation photo and
Hmm.
she remarks about how their family looks. So she knows that the two of them are married and that they're Kosuke's parents, and that also makes them Noel's parents. But after the second head injury, she just she doesn't retain any of that whatsoever. And I think even at the formal, she she doesn't put it like she's not having
Right.
any thoughts about it formal. Granted, she's distracted at the formal. But after the
Yes.
head injury, it's like she's never met any of these people before as far as their family connections. And then she has that moment in at the Park's house where she's like, "Oh my god, disgusting! That man's married to Yui the witch. That's Kosuke and No's father."
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm so sorry, baby girl, but you knew. You saw the
Right.
picture all the way back then. And that's a really good, I think, example of the kind of impact that Kimchi is writing her head injury to have, and the way that it's playing into the narrative, and the way you said that it's like subverting that shoujo trope, because she is smart enough to pick up on these things, and without the head injury, we're being shown that she likely would. But post head injury, like I remember said, she's being beat on the head with this information. Actually, she was beat on the head. Um,
No.
no, but that's what's going on. Like we're
Right.
we're getting these plot points where it's like, oh my god, she's being beat over her head with this information. She's so dense. She's slow. Why doesn't she get it in the way of a typical shoujo protagonist? But the reason is her head got beat.
Right. And it's just, I really like that Kimchi makes the effort to be like, here's our typical dense shoujo type character. And here's a reason that she's actually like this. Because obviously the thing is, when people have hangups with this kind of trope showing up in certain media, it's not that we hate that type of character. I mean, some people do, and that's fine, they're justified. But typically why people hate it is because it's just played straight up as a trope. Tropes work when you give them a reason to be. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we have certain tropes that we love because we love the way that they add to a story. We like how they play out in certain situations. But you can't use a trope as a prop. It needs a reason to actually be there. Otherwise, it doesn't really contribute. So when you have when you take a trope that is kind of regarded as, we hate this, we're so tired of this dense main lead who isn't aware of anything, and then you go, hey, there's actually a reason she's not aware of these things, it feels better because there's this reason. And it also makes you anticipate a lot more, how is this going to play out in the long run? Because obviously, like we've established now, I don't think we have to worry that her head injury is going to have, any physical danger. We don't have to worry that, one day Shin-Ae is going to go to sleep and she's just not going to wake up. We have to worry more about what kinds of issues what kind of issues will arise of her slow processing? What kind of accidents and situations will she get into because she can't see issues as they happen? And obviously being caught in Yui's trap and having to learn to play her game and actually try to go against her, like not just survive in her game, but actually play along with her, that's going to give her trouble. And obviously, like as an aside that we don't have to get into, I think this is where it's going to help for Shin-Ae to have alliances, because obviously we're going to see she can't do this on her own, which is, normal. Rand tried to do this on his own and, he was not able to. He doesn't have processing delay issues like Shin-Ae does, and he was not able to do it on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Shin-Ae having alliances is going to, aid her. And I think that is obviously a bigger picture that we're meant to get out of this, is that, people are all going to have some kind of issue that's going to hold us back in some way. Noel has a chip on his shoulder. Kosuke is literally a robot who is breaking down in every single way. Shin-Ae has that processing delay, but together they can do anything.
And that and again, it ties into the wider theme of I Love You, where they need to be allied and banded together and find community in order to get through. And we see this as Rand's downfall. We see it as it's going to be Alyssa's downfall. We
Mm-hmm.
see it as it is also kind of Yui's downfall, because all the alliances
Mhm.
that she does have are also her enemies. And so giving her this processing issue that needs to be kind of supported by those around her, in opposite to ways that she is supporting them where they need, it really hammers in that point of they need to be allied, they need to be a community, they need to be in this together in order to get where they want to go.
Right. And as we've come to see about I Love You in general, one of the common themes is fuck capitalism, community is everything. Like, yeah. So to answer the question in full, like, how do we think it will affect her moving forward? Obviously, it's going to hinder her in ways, but ultimately relying on community and not trying to rely solely on yourself is going to be the key to really being able to move forward.
And that's been such a huge point of her personal narrative growth.
Mm-hmm.
So it all
Go
ties
on.
together.
You're right.
I was just wrapping it in a little bow.
You did
It's
good.
all
It was a
connected.
nice bow.
It's all tied together,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, as we said, it's an amplification of the things that she already struggles with and she already needs.
Yeah. And in having to deal with it, it's going to better help her actually achieve the things that she needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like we're ready for question 2.
Do you want to do a potty break first?
Do we want to do it before this question or after this question?
I don't know. It's up to you. You're the one who mentioned it, so.
I know, Rin. We're doing so good.
We purposely arranged questions, and when I say we, I mean L. But I signed off, so it was a
Well,
group
Ashley
effort.
put the questions in the document, so she did the bulk of the work. But I
If you
arranged the
think you're
question.
good, we can go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we arranged the questions kind of in order from shorter to longer, and we will evaluate as time allows.
Okay.
Okay, so do you want to read it or do you want me to?
I'll do it. Okay. So that brings us to question 2, which was submitted by our member Solidaritea. She said, the juiciest drama, in my opinion, coming up soon in the story is going to be the holiday dinner between Rand, Yui, and Kosuke. We've discussed lots of things that could happen during it, but would love a retouch on all of that since I bet a lot of readers forgot. It's a foreboding thing hanging in the plot's air.
And I feel like the biggest variable to me here is what on earth is Kosuke going to look like at that point in time?
Exactly. And like, how is he willing to continue to mask or not?
Yeah. Does he want to play the the happy family that they've always been, or is the fact that he is starting to actually recognize and internalize that his mother has got some issues, and he's starting to recognize his, consciously recognize his feelings about his father, um, his feelings about Noel. He thinks that Rand got Noel a gift and not him. He doesn't trust Yui anymore. He's starting on this descent into substance abuse and negative coping skills. Like, just where will he be?
And especially because he is currently avoiding Yui. So that's going to make actually seeing her even worse. But
Mm-hmm.
then also knowing, or at least having a suspicion. Well, I mean, he knows because the results, but the drugging and realizing that she's been drugging him through food. And like, how do you avoid that? And more importantly, how do you avoid it without being suspicious and
Yeah,
letting her know you know? Like, obviously, she does it through sweets, but
but I
if
mean,
he's if he starts rejecting sweets,
and
she's gonna get concerned, and
she's
maybe
gonna
she'll
get
put it in
concerned.
something else.
I think, I think it's mostly in the sweets, but I think she has probably put it in other things at various points, maybe
Drinks.
lower doses. Um, And when we see Yui take him out to breakfast after the Christmas party, he doesn't eat. He doesn't want to eat. He doesn't want to be at that breakfast, and she doesn't like it. And like
Right.
we're kind of like seeing people say in the chat, like she's already seemingly thinking about the fact that maybe he is suspicious. And yeah, I think he's going to try to not eat. And I think that it's going to make Yui more unhinged because again, this is Kosuke potentially slipping away again, which is something that she has fought tooth and nail against in the past and has experienced before and was the closest to downfall she's ever been. And so we've got this tense, paranoid, kind of on both ends relationship between Kosuke and Yui that's going to come to a head that night. But then we also have the Kosuke Rand relationship where Kosuke is feeling very much like he is not Rand's son. Like, I don't mean that in a biological way, but like emotionally, he is not Rand's son. Like he is very much now the thrown out child. The last time that they consciously saw each other, Kosuke was standing on top of Noel's bloody beaten body. So that's where we're coming from, unless they see each other before then, which seems potentially unlikely. And he thinks that Rand didn't give him the Christmas gift, which is likely going to come up relatively soon. Will it come up before this dinner? Will it come up after? I'm not sure. And then on Rand's end, he just found out for sure that Kosuke is not his biological son, and it's likely playing a part in Yujing's hit piece. So we have this going on, and then we also have the aftermath of all those conversations between Yui and Rand in the hospital. I said as if there was more than one, but it was more than one episode for us. Where they're very much now at a head. Rand is actively fighting back. Yui is the most like large that she has ever been. And they're having those fights over an unconscious Kosuke, so that energy's in the room too.
That is going to be the most hostile Christmas dinner you could ever imagine. And like, Kosuke's just going to be sitting there absolutely crashing out and falling apart, like this violent energy coming off of his mother, this hateful energy coming off of his father, he himself sitting here questioning absolutely everything he's ever known, and like you said, probably trying to avoid eating and being afraid that he's going to be drugged again, and still dealing with obviously withdrawal both from the drugs that his body has become so dependent upon, but also the fact that he's literally binging and going on a bender right now. That is going to be the most miserable Christmas dinner, and I don't actually want to see it.
Miserable
Carmi
is a
is
good
correct.
word.
He's going to be very hungover. It's going to be terrible. I would love if he didn't actually go, but I'm certain if he didn't,
it's
Yui
even more of
would.
a problem.
Yeah. And we know that Yui does not respect his boundaries anyway. Like, she would still show up.
And I feel like this dinner, I think miserable is absolutely what it's going to be. I think it's going to be incredibly tense. And I think there's probably going to be a lot of subtext. Here's all
Oh
these
God,
people with
yes.
all of these ongoing conflicts happening, and I don't think it's going to come out outright, but I think it's going to be, we're all sitting down and we're playing the happy family that we've always been playing, but things are clearly like the worst they've ever been, and we are all in some way fighting each other and paranoid about each other. And I think it's going to splinter off and spiral all three of them further down the paths that are being set up.
Right. I agree.
As an
We do.
aside,
Go on.
you might be bringing up what I was bringing up. I'm not sure.
Oh, I was going to say we do have some questions going on in the chat if we want to address any of those.
That's what I was going to say. Where is it Hint? Is that the name?
That's hi. I'm pretty sure, right?
I think so, but I was just going based
Yeah.
on what's currently typed. But I'll just say hi because that's also continuity. Um, hi said, is Rand in on Kosuke's paternity being exposed? I think he is, based on the way that he and Yujing were talking at the pond and the fact that they collaborated on getting those results. I think he's seeing it as an unfortunate collateral damage to
Yes.
getting all of them out of this situation.
I think he's the one who called for the paternity test.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, while Yujing is very happy to do this, because I'm sure maybe she might have her own suspicions, or maybe just Rand revealing his suspicions, brings her some glee. Rand definitely called for it. Yeah, like Jess is saying, he's probably suspected it for a while. Obviously, the way that Yui treats Rand in their relationship, the way that she has boxed him out completely of him having any role as a parent, obviously that's not necessarily a trigger that would make you go, gee, am I even the father? But Rand has had a lot of experience with Yui, and just the way that she acts, right? It's not
Yeah.
just the fact that she's boxing him out of the family relationship. It's the way that he's also denied any opportunity in Kosuke's life. It's the way that she would pointedly not tell him things about, Kosuke. Like if we go by what Rand says, and I think it's fair to do this, Yui never even told Rand when Kosuke's graduation was. And I think it is fair to go off of this because, while yes, we know that Rand is a very busy man who, didn't have time to go to Kosuke's recitals, and your mother will record it for me anyway. We also know that Rand has conveniently always been busy on Kosuke's birthday, and we can assume that this is an arrangement made by Yui. We know that Yui has been playing this game with Rand forever. So, the fact that it's not just about his role in Kosuke's life, but his role in the company, period, and the way that Yui is always on this attack with him, I think it gave him enough reason to go, I want to check this because, also we're told that Kosuke was conceived on their honeymoon night.
It
But
was that he was conceived at the time of their honeymoon, which
yes,
was
at the
also
time of their honeymoon.
not. I don't think that she said a specific night, so it wasn't
Right.
necessarily the first night. And yeah, it's left vague enough
That, he could have been conceived with somebody else during the honeymoon. And, maybe the events of the honeymoon alone gave Rand enough suspicion. Maybe, I don't want to be graphic here, but, maybe there was enough to make him go, I don't know if we actually made a kid,
It's just there's enough doubt, and I mean, even just reading the
Yes.
comic, even at the very beginning, people were being like, "Is Kosuke not Rand's son?" Where just the dynamic that's always been there in that family leaves you wondering.
And maybe Rand too has seen Kosuke and Sangchul side by side and
Oh
gone,
no!
I don't have a good feeling about this.
Oh no!
But at any rate, yes, Rand is in this, and like Elle said, I think he has unfortunately come to accept Kosuke as collateral damage. I think that is very much a big part of why he goes to see Kosuke that night. If you remember how Rand feels in this whole Christmas party arc, it feels very much like he is saying goodbye to his kids. The fact that he does not even go to see Noel while he's in the hospital, partly because he knows it's only going to make things worse for Noel. And the best thing that he can actually do for Noel is, in fact, to just leave him be. But the gifts that he imparts with them feel very final, we know from the phone call that Eugene makes to a certain someone who, by the way, thanks to Leo, we are now wondering if that could be Songchol's sister. We know that Eugene has been working on this piece about Null, obviously. And that, Rand is obviously very involved in this. I think Rand and Eugene meet the night of the Christmas party. I think this is when they're starting to set things in motion. They probably already have plans and ideas. I think Kosuke getting hospitalized just happens to be convenient enough that he goes, you know what, let's test it. We've got it. Let's do this. I don't know that maybe he was going to pursue it on his own. Maybe they still would have found a way, but it happened to be very convenient. And I think, obviously he's been preparing for the fallout of what this article is going to reveal. Because obviously it's not going to be favorable for Kosuke, even though he's kind of caught up in all of this, but it's not going to be favorable for him. And Rand is aware of how it's going to impact him.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it's that like unfortunate collateral damage of like, well, our lives are going to suck either way, and the only way to make it any better for everyone is to make it suck really bad for Kosuke for a little while.
And to be fair, Rand does make the comment that Kosuke will have nobody by his side. And like, obviously, he doesn't know what he's saying, but, for us on that meta level, we know that ultimately it means that at some point in the end, Kosuke will have Noel at his side at some point in a way that will at least alleviate things. But Hi does go on to say, that's so rough because Kosuke will be left to believe my father doesn't love me because I'm not his son, even though he does love him and he is his son because he doesn't have evidence to the contrary. And we have touched on this in podcast episodes before, especially the Kosuke will always be Rand's son. Biology does not determine who your father is. Your father is the person who is present in your life and the person who tries to raise you. The person who raises you, but in Rand's case, it is, tries. He has shown on many occasions that he makes effort. I think it's very clear that at some point in time he gave up because what could he do? But he still shows that he makes effort when he can. He still tries to tell Kosuke that you don't have to live this way. This isn't who you have to be. That phone call that he has with Kosuke where he tells him, I realize I never actually realized how bad things were and what you'd been put through, and tells him that he cares about him and that he loves him. Like like Kosuke's going to come away with this belief that he doesn't love me because he's not my father. And I fear that there will be people who will also come away with this being like, oh, that's why Kosuke, Rand was never close to him because he sensed that he's not his kid or some weird biological weird stuff. But I want people to remember biology does not equate to fatherhood. But also, we have also talked a lot about how Kosuke is going to have to make peace with a ghost, and it hurts. And I'm not going to say much more about it because I will cry.
If you want to hear more about Kosuke having to make peace with a ghost, check out our, I think it's the Tale of Two Dads episode.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely that one.
Check out episode 13 of season 1.
Another question that we had was, does Rand know about the drugging? And I'm pretty sure to some extent he might be suspicious of it. Yui? Go on.
I was going to say, I feel like he probably thinks it's happened a couple of times. But I doubt that he thinks that it's happening daily like we
right.
It is.
I don't think he knows how bad it is. Because when Rand does go to see Kosuke at the hospital, and Yui's already there, and she's got this teacup, and Kosuke's passed out, she specifically mentions tranquilizing a turbulent mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole argument that Rand and Yui are having is very much, are you not tired of trying to control this poor boy? Are you not tired of reigning so much control and not letting him just be his own person? And she's like, oh, we already did that, remember? We gave him so much freedom in college and he still decided to come back to us. It's what he wants. Just like we were just having a conversation yesterday in the server. We've been having a lot of voice chats, so if you want to have more discussions about I Love You, you can always join the server and come hang out with us, specifically about that episode where Rand and Yui are having this argument over Kosuke's unconscious body, and the sheer it's not even the sheer irony, because obviously Yui knows what she's doing, but how angry that episode made me and others feel reading, because you have Yui just so openly working her manipulation, right? And talking about how, oh, don't you know how Kosuke got hurt? He was searching for you. He heard that you were in this hospital, and he was just running around, and he was so upset and frenzied, and he fell and hurt his head. How does that make you feel? And it's like she's building up to this whole you're never around, and he's always putting out so much energy to search for you. You're such a deadbeat dad. And it's like, you're the reason Kosuke's like this in the first place. And she knows it. She knows
Mm-hmm.
what she's done. She knows that she's orchestrated this. Yes, hi. She's taunting him, and it got under my skin. It makes me so mad. It's like, you're gonna sit here and say this stuff, and you're the reason Kosuke's like this.
Yep.
And she doesn't want him to get checked out, obviously, because then people would find out he's being drugged, but also because frankly she doesn't really care that much. He's fine, he's good enough.
Yeah.
Hansuke's worried to death about him. He's like, no, this wasn't him being dramatic, this was different, something's going on.
Something's wrong with him.
You know how Kosuke is. He's just such a dramatic boy. These things happen. And he's like, no, I'm worried something's wrong with his head. And she's like, you're overstepping the lines, boy, and I will revoke your license if you don't stop this right now. And I'm like, clearly, if people didn't know before, this was the sign that Yui does not care about Kosuke at all. But actually having it laid out and spelled out for you was just like, Jesus.
Yeah.
You're just a doctor. What do you know? Exactly, Jess. Oof.
Yeah, and it's even not only does, like we said, not only does she not want Kosuke checked out because it'll reveal that she's been pretty intensely drugging him for a really consistent period of time, but if there is something wrong, why should she care? She just needs him to be a body in the CFO position.
Exactly. Bombi is saying, in my halfish reread, I started feeling she hates her own son. Before, I thought it was a twisted version of love, but even the way she treated Ko at the omelet place, like an underlying resentment. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
I have My impression has always been that, well, I wouldn't necessarily say always, but once we knew enough about Yui, my impression has always been that she sees Kosuke as a tool extension of herself, and she resents him for being the Hirahara man that she should have been, who's going to get everything handed to him just because he's a man on the back of her hard work. And she's just another man that she needs to use as a tool to roundabout get access to the things that she should have, and he will still just be handed everything on a silver spoon while she has had to fight forever.
I think it is largely why she has made a point to commodify Rand's love to ensure that Kosuke will work so hard, because in a way it's punishment, because she wants him to actually earn this. She wants him to, actually work hard for something instead of being handed things on that silver platter. But also in a way that devoids him of any kind of personality, any sense of self, because again, he is just an extension of her. He is a tool that she is using to get what she really wants. And the fact that she has to use a man in order to do this makes her so angry. We know how much she resents the patriarchy. We know how much she resents men. We know how much she can't stand that she herself cannot have what she actually wants despite her actual capabilities, despite proving that she unfortunately is cunning enough and manipulative enough to do really well in business. Let's
Yep.
unfortunately be honest there. She has what it takes, yes, Bommy, and she can't actually do it because she was not born with a penis.
And
And
on that,
she
like,
has go on.
just on that concept of she has what it takes, that makes her resentment so much more profound and so much worse because Kosuke kind of
Does
doesn't have what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's bolstering up this man who doesn't really have what it takes to get that far in business. And he's still going to be handed all of it over her, once again, on the back of all of her hard work.
I don't have any good references in mind, but she says a lot of very backhanded compliment things about him, which are clearly insults about him, or she'll even make comments about, like, did I give birth to I sometimes wonder if I gave birth to a robot. And it's like, ma'am, you're the reason he's like this. And you know that. It just, like, obviously, like Bommy is saying, when you go back and you reread this with this kind of understanding in mind, you start to realize that at no point does she ever actually show affection or love for her son. Like you were saying, Bommy, at one point in time, you thought maybe this is a twisted kind of love. I know when we were all first starting to speculate, does Yui drug and manipulate Kosuke? There was a lot of pushback at first because people were very certain that, like, no, Yui loves him. It's just a really twisted type of love. But when you go back and you really start to re-examine it, you realize that, right, there is no love. If she loved him, why would she have put him in that entire birthday arc scenario? She took absolute pleasure out of watching Kosuke squirm. She took delight out of taking this minor, making her skip school, by the way. We can't forget that. So that she could go help prepare a birthday for her, putting her in uncomfortable clothing, trying to strip her down, putting her in Kosuke's clothes, trying to be provocative about this. Also, that she can sit here and, like, make Kosuke squirm, and she reveled in that. That's not a mother who loves her son. And even if we try to be like, no, it's just a twisted kind of love, she just really wants him to make babies. First off, we have come to realize it has never ever been about babies. I don't think Yui cares about the babies, right? That's just been another one of her games. It is something that she did so that she could continue to mess with Meg and rile her up. Something she does again so that she can mess with Kosuke and rile him up. It was a test for Shin-Ae, trying to be like, are you going to be just like Meg and all these other girls? What kind of girl are you, Shin-Ae? I want to find out. But, like, even if you were looking at it like that, like, even as a twisted love, it doesn't make sense because do you really think that what Yui was trying to do is, like, get her son hot and turned on so that he'll, like, go and ravage this minor? Like, yeah, there's no love there. And when you start to reread with that lens of understanding what Yui has been doing his entire life, it was never about love. It was always about maintaining that he is this extension of her, that he is a tool, that he is a prop for her hopefully one day being able to have the kind of power and influence that she hopes, all backed by so much resentment and hatred, because how come you get to have everything I can't when you can't even measure up to me?
And it's just going back, every interaction that she has with him or about him can be categorized as either utilitarian, sinister, or both. There's nothing else there.
Also, Bombi, like, note that her eyes are open, which just makes that even more sinister. Like, it's that expression. It is the eyes narrowed and open, and it's the gaslighting. This makes me think so much of how we know that Yui absolutely manipulates Kosuke's memories, right? We remember how after Kosuke punches Null, we get this flashback that is way too technicolor to be a flashback. Like, as it is, it feels even brighter than a normal episode is, let alone for a memory. It's full saturation. He remembers it with far too much clarity. There is no way it can be an actual memory because, as we've seen from all I Love You memories, something in the memory is always going to be off, whether it's that color is subdued, whether it's the fact that text is a little blurry, the images are a little blurry. This is definitely how she does that. When he's sitting here going, why on earth am I feeling like this? And she's just like, you're feeling sick because you're hungry and you're dehydrated. She's trying to rewrite what he believes, except it's not working at this time. But it shows us the way she does that and the way that she rewrote Kosuke's recollection of that night Noel was taken away, and why she remembers it, or why he remembers it with such clarity, because it was all relayed to him as a story.
I also, unless we have more thoughts on question 2 or any of these other questions, I feel like this is a good bridge into question 3.
I think so.
How much are you allowed to blame others for your behavior, and how does a person think if they were healthy or slash healed and comes from a similar background to the main characters? Wait, is this question phrased right?
I think it is a little. You might have to read it a second and
Hold on, yeah.
paraphrase.
Let me think about how to phrase this.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure this user is English second language.
I think so. Yeah, I'm not blaming them for it. Okay.
Please hold while Elle interprets the question.
Okay, so question 3 from member Nasi asked, how much are you allowed to blame others for your behavior, and how would a person think if they were healthy or healed and come from a similar background to the main characters? Basically, how would taking responsibility look for each of them? And they also said, preferably looking at Noel because I feel he's the least complicated in terms of the topic responsibility versus victim mentality. So I will say, first, I disagree that Noel is the least complicated in terms of victim mentality versus responsibility. And we can talk about that more specifically later, but I will start right off the bat with that. I don't agree with that. I do love Noel, but I don't agree with that he's the least complicated there. But I think when we get to how much you're allowed to blame others for your behavior, I think the first thing is to know that when we start looking at the influences on our behavior, it starts from a perspective of we're looking for the explanation. We're looking for the why. Why has this been happening? And I feel like Kosuke is actually a really good example to use for this concept
He's always
because
the example for this.
it's so apparent
Mhm,
where, this is someone who, had Yui never been involved, Kosuke would have done basically none of what he's done. Almost everything comes back to Yui's manipulation, the ideas that she has put in his head, what she has been encouraging from him, what she wants him to do. And so all of that behavior, for the most part, can be traced back there. It is exacerbated by Kosuke's own existing nature and insecurities, but without that push, likely none of this would happen. These wouldn't be choices that he's making. However, he does still have guilt over what he's done, which shows that he has an awareness that he's making choices that are not right, that he is hurting people who don't deserve it, that he is doing things that don't necessarily make sense, both for his own life and for other people's lives. And the distinction and where we have kind of the gray lines is, like the question says, how much is it the environment and influences around you's fault versus how much is it your own fault? And
mhm,
I think personally, I feel like a lot of it comes from a ability to be aware, where like, can I blame Kosuke for the feelings that he has that lead him to treat others the way that he does? No. Can I
mhm,
blame him for his impression that these are viable options for how to interact with the world? No, because that is what his world has always promoted and shown him is right, what he has been told is right, what he believes to be the option. But can I blame him for the action itself, especially when seeing that he has some awareness that it's not right and he has guilt and he is doing these things to people who have done nothing to deserve it? Yes, I
mhm.
can. And I think for most characters and in most places, it's not an all or nothing situation. Yui is at the far end of that spectrum, where she's a good example of when we get to a point where we definitely cannot excuse any of what we're doing with
Mhm.
our history and the influences of others. We can still explain how she got there. We can go through episode 7 of the pod and rehash all of her issues with her family and her issues with the patriarchy and everything that she's been denied and everything that she wants to be and all of her resentment over having to play roles that should never have been hers and not being allowed anything that should have been hers, being put down her whole life, and how that started as a potentially righteous quest for vengeance and for her own place in the world. And then it morphed into a just revenge battle against anyone and everything around her with not even no care for collateral damage, but with actively wanting collateral damage. And at that
Mhm.
point, you're roping in so many people who don't deserve it. You're doing things that you don't need to be doing, that you know that you don't need to be doing, and that's when it goes very clearly past that line, and we can't blame our background. We can still be explained by our background, but we can't justify things with our background. But for most characters, it's a little bit of both, where like, should Kosuke have been doing any of what he did, particularly to Noel? No. Does he have some awareness of that? Yes. Did he actually need to do those things? No. Did a part of him genuinely believe that he did? Yes. Did his
Mhm.
environment promote those actions? Yes. Was he manipulated into those beliefs and those feelings? Yes. So it's a little bit of both, and it's a very, very gray area. And I think there's a little bit of a difference between how much can we be blamed and what does accountability look like.
Right. I think a really good example of this is how, as a fandom, we like to compare Alyssa and Shin-Ae and how they both react very differently in the face of similar situations. Um, you know, as a fandom, we look at Shin-Ae and we hold her up as a pinnacle of greatness because she does not really cow to peer pressure. She's able to stand up to in the face of adversity and fight back against others, whereas Alyssa does not do that. She has a tendency to cave into peer pressure. She doesn't have that same ability to fight back. But the reason why we see these differences isn't because it's a moral failing on one character versus another, but because what we're talking about is the environmental differences that people are raised in. Like you're saying about Kosuke, is he is raised in an environment very different from us. He's raised in a hierarchical family where from the time he's very young, he is told we're not like other families. We're not like other people. He has this immediately implanted in his mind. He internalizes this from a very young age, that just because other families are like this, just because other people are like this, doesn't mean that he has to be like this, because he's been told that we're different, we're not like that. Likewise, when we look at Shin-Ae and Alyssa, we understand that they're growing up in very different households. Shin-Ae may have lost her mother and her sister, and has pretty strong feelings about that, even though she's buried them deep down. But she still grows up in a pretty secure household. At no point in her life has she ever had to doubt that her father loves her. Even though he hasn't been around much, she knows that he's always working because he has debts to pay. Alyssa doesn't come from such a secure family. Her household is the source of her insecurity and her fears. And as we understanding trauma, we come to understand why Alyssa cannot face conflict and why this is something she struggles with. Whereas we understand that Shin-Ae is somebody with a very strong sense of justice, and somebody who tends to act without thinking, which is how she ends up in situations where sometimes she gets in trouble for her self-righteous actions.
That same trait that we often immediately look upon as a virtue, especially compared to some of the other characters, has also very much been her detriment.
Right. And obviously Alyssa is the other character who comes up in this. How much are you to blame for your behaviors based on your environment and how you have been taught to navigate the world? Obviously the conversations go a little differently, because often we find that people discuss male characters and female characters differently. On a general whole, fandom has come around to acknowledge Kosuke has been drugged and manipulated his whole life, and it has altered his perception. Like you said, Elle, it does not give him the right to have hurt the people he does, but we understand why he did, how he saw that these were the only options he saw because of the way that he was raised to believe things. He never thought that there was another option, because in his mind, these are people who want to harm my family. These are people who are leeches. These are people who are here to destroy our reputations and take everything we have, because that's what Yui has taught him. How is he supposed to see otherwise? This is also why Shin-Ae is such a great character in Kosuke's life. And this isn't because it's character who fixes character's life. It's because Shin-Ae helps him see things with a different perspective. She helps him kind of break these illusions that he's been living with his whole life. That's why, we ride so hard for platonic Shinsuke friendships, because having this affiliation with Shin-Ae helps him to start to unlearn things that he's known his whole life and start to learn the things that were withheld from him. When we look at Alyssa, she doesn't have any of that. And you can argue she was given that opportunity, but again, we have to look at what survival looked like for Alyssa in that situation, and what survival looks like for her currently. And obviously, again, this is one of those things where you have to put aside your biases, because if we're talking about, how much you're allowed to blame a person, we have to acknowledge first, like you said, the why. Why is this person this way? Why do they do the things they do? Why did they do this? Is it something where, we can acknowledge this is what they were taught? Or is it something where this was the only solution they had? Or is it like Yui, where it's like, she knows what she's doing and she's taking actual joy out of this? Kosuke and Alyssa are not characters who we see taking joy out of the things that they do. They're characters that we, in fact, see feel discomfort and remorse and oftentimes guilt about what they're doing.
And
And I think that's where that accountability comes in.
yeah, I feel like as far as the blame, it's like the main factors are like awareness, survival, and maliciousness.
Yes. And again, survival is really important because that is largely a theme of I Love You, is things people do in, pursuit of survival. A lot of people do bad things when they're trying to survive because that is the only option that they see. And often, you are going to come to regret it. And again, it comes down to accountability. Are you willing to acknowledge what you've done? Do you feel that kind of regret? We see that Kosuke is getting there. Alyssa's kind of a little further off from that kind of accountability. She still deflects from things because, again, that is part of her survival.
Yeah. And there's also the like you kind of said before, like you can't really heal all that much when you're in survival mode. So it's like, as frustrating as the deflections are, is this person actually in a place where they can take that step back and really acknowledge the reality of the situation and all the things that they couldn't see as possibilities and all of the harm that has been caused in a true objective sense? Where, like, for Alyssa, she's not in that position. We as readers are, but she's not. And this also comes back a little bit to, I think, how much bird's eye view blame we can assign to people is a little bit different than what the victim of people can assign to them. Because we've talked also about how, like, we can see that Kosuke was in a survival mode and didn't see other options and has guilt over what he did and was being drugged and manipulated and had this skewed perception, and that these are all reasons why he, as a child for most of it, and then, continued as an adult, made these choices and acted the way he did to Noel. None of that means that Noel has to forgive him or that Noel cannot blame him or be mad at him. We, as a bird's eye third party who wasn't directly affected, can take a little bit more of an unbiased stance. But as a victim, you really don't have to.
Right. Like, as readers, we can hope that maybe when Noel learns more about Kosuke's circumstances, he would be able to empathize, especially knowing that, he himself was manipulated by Yui. But that doesn't mean, like you said, he's required to forgive Kosuke, because at the end of the day, Kosuke still caused him harm. He still ruined his life. And right, and I think that's where I feel like that's probably what Nasi was trying to get at too, because I feel like I remember these kinds of conversations coming up in the server. It's like you were saying, there is that difference between character versus us, the reader, and what you're supposed to take away in this kind of meta way.
Yeah. And
go on.
Unless we have a ton more to say about, like, responsibility and blame, do we want to start talking about accountability for the
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah. Because I feel like that's another, like, I feel like exploring what accountability looks like is both an interesting question and a good way to explore this concept.
Actually, before we do accountability, do you want to touch on Noel as the quote-quote least complicated? I feel like that
Oh,
could be a
okay.
good segue.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say first, or do you want me to start?
I mean, I agree with you, but I will go ahead and start. That way you can
Okay.
add on your additional thoughts.
I would love that.
I don't think Noel is the least complicated in terms of responsibility versus victim mentality, and I think he has proven that to us
Noel has
a
even
lot.
said it himself.
Right. Um, Noel has a heavy victim mentality, you know? Um, and I'm not saying that like Noel plays victim. I mean, he feels very often that he is the victim, often to a point where he kind of forgets that other people are victims. Obviously, I'm not saying he should be able to see that Kosuke is a victim because Yui's version of manipulation is very subtle. She appears to other people as like this doting, loving mother, even though we've discussed before that it's very easy to see that she kind of hates him. Um, but even when we think about Shin-Ae and how she's wrapped up in this now, especially when we think about Alyssa, who on some level he knows is a victim of domestic abuse, or at least lives with domestic abuse and has enough of a fear of it. Um, he kind of falls into that hole. And like, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing because obviously he has so much trauma that it's very inevitable. But at the same time, he still feels like he's responsible for the things that happen to people, to the extent that while he knows Yui is a source of misery, he can't make that connection that Yui is why bad things are happening to people he cares about. Um, to a point where he kind of blames himself at the end of the day. Even if somebody else does something, it's still his fault because he was involved or because he took interest in something or someone.
And Noel does this really interesting thing where he feels responsible for things that he's not responsible for, and
Mm-hmm.
he feels victimed for things like he gets blinded by victimhood in ways that he shouldn't necessarily be,
Mm-hmm.
and he he manipulates
Yes.
situations and simultaneously feels responsible for harm but also victimized. And so he's actually a really interesting character to think about this with, because how many times does he say that he's the problem and he's not good and people shouldn't be around him, and he's trying to atone but he's doing it in ways that are wrong, but he's still choosing to do it, and he wants kind of everyone around him to bend into his world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, he's this incredibly traumatized boy who is abused and targeted constantly, who has lost so much, who like feels victimized but can never put a name to it, and feels responsible for his own victimhood,
Mm-hmm.
but also fails to recognize and really take responsibility for the times when he does hurt other people a um as a consequence of the way that he treats his victimhood and his responsibility, and also fails to recognize, like you said, the times that other people are victimized. We see this in the way that he pushes away his friends. We see this in the way that he treats and manipulates Shin-Ae. We see this in the way that he turns away Kosuke, the way that Kosuke turned him away. We see this in the way that he talks about himself. We see this in the way that he talks to the cat. Um, we see this in his inability to articulate his own experiences. It's just, it's like Thea said, Null the diva. Um, and
He
Thea
is.
said it's interesting that it's interesting because Noel hurts his friends most by pushing them away, but in his mind, it's still the better thing to do, despite, say, Dieter not having been targeted by Yui. And yet he does things like this all the time, where
Mm-hmm.
he's always like Kami said, "I'm the problem, it's Noel." And he's always in that mentality that he has been victimized and traumatized, and a part of him is like, that can't be my fault, but so much of him has been kind of gaslit into believing that it all is his fault, that it
Mm-hmm.
causes him to be overly manipulative of situations and cause harm by attempting to avoid being the problem, not even always for other people's sake, sometimes for his own sense of righteousness. And
Yes.
it creates this really, really interesting and kind of strange balance of responsibility and victimhood within him.
Especially piggybacking off of what Leo said, Shin-Ae calls him out on that when they're talking, when he's still in the alley and she's on the rooftop, and he's talking about how he's leaving to protect her, and she's like, what do you mean protect me? You leaving is worse because I'm still left with that witch. I'm literally working at her company. What is leaving me going to do? He is actively hurting her and harming her by doing that. Yui doesn't. Yes, Leo, you're the one that's hurting me right now. Leaving is not going to protect Shin-Ae. Yui isn't going to like just drop interest in Shin-Ae. And again, this is when I go back to what I was saying about how sometimes he is so blinded by his own victimhood that he doesn't understand other people are also victims in situations that he isn't he's I don't want to say that he's not acknowledging, because that's not it. It's that he's failing to see. In the end, he always comes back to this idea that Shin-Ae is involved with Yui because she's involved with him. But we as readers know Shin-Ae is involved with Yui because Yui took interest in her, you know?
And
Leaving isn't going to do anything. Yui has taken interest in her. She wants Shin-Ae as her new little puppet, as her new little extension. And again, I always have to reiterate this. Null still does not know about Kosuke's birthday. He still doesn't know why Shin-Ae was actually at the party. He doesn't know the circumstances that led her to being there. He still just internalizes that it's me. I'm the reason. It's me. I have to leave in order to protect people. Even though, again, like Leo said, Dita's not involved in any of this.
And
Yui's not.
Carmi and Leo just said things that I think really exemplify it. Where Carmi said he thinks his absence will solve everything, which is a kind of selfishness that's not narcissistic. And Leo said he takes the blame for everything except when he directly hurts the people he loves, which is exactly what it is.
Right. And like, we love Noel, okay? We're not saying this to rag on him, but we also acknowledge that Noel often gets these passes because he's been so traumatized that I think we don't always want to look critically at the things he does, because, again, it's so easy to say, well, obviously he's so hurt, he's been so traumatized, blah, blah, blah. He's not trying to hurt people, but intention does not equate to results. And Noel may not be trying to hurt people, but, like Carmi said, that kind of thinking is a selfishness,
Yeah.
Even
And
when
Leo
you
said,
like.
oh, I was going to say, Leo said, we get why he feels that way, where it comes from, but it's important to acknowledge those things about him. He's a very contradictory character.
Right. Even when you think about the fact that his atonement is simply that he thinks entering these people's lives and doing things to help give them better lives without getting attached to them or those relationships meaning anything is, like a good thing. He, there was clearly no thinking this through, because like, how was it supposed to go when he decides to leave? Did
Just
he
up and
really?
leave them all.
Right. And like, obviously
Like,
part of this is
how?
his self-deprecation, because like, oh, they're not even going to care when I leave. But it's like,
Right. It's
you're
like,
becoming
how?
an important role in their lives. Why do you think it's not going to hurt them?
Right, just think about how it has ever felt for anyone important to leave you. And then imagine having this profound relationship with someone who improves everything about your life, and then you find out that he was faking it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what?
Oh, I was just going, you say your thing first.
Oh, I was going to talk about, actually, I think this is kind of a nice place to talk about what we were saying with the double standard with Noel and Alyssa's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
where people around 243 like to kind of get on Alyssa for cheating on Noel and say that Noel is right to be heard about that, which he is. Do not get me wrong. With his perception that it was consensual cheating, even though that's not what it was, he can feel a way about that. But we also have to point out that if they've agreed that this is a business relationship, right? And this is happening
Mm-hmm.
after they've agreed on that. But if we're going to hold Alyssa to the standard of a real girlfriend, we also have to hold Noel to the standard of a real boyfriend. And when we meet him at the beginning of the comic, he is still trying. He is putting more into this relationship than Alyssa is. It still feels like going through the motions, but he is doing more. He's at least trying to put forth those motions. But when he gets to the point of knowing Shin-Ae, for a little while he starts, trying to kind of refuse the way that they feel about each other and the intimacy of their relationship. But once the formal especially has happened, and also, during the formal, he very much lets himself engage in emotional cheating with Shin-Ae. Their relationship becomes so intimate so quickly, and aside from the very beginning, he really never has a thought about the whole "I have a girlfriend" thing, except as a way to deflect his own responsibility, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And
Kind of to deflect getting close to her too.
yeah,
Like, we're
yes,
not
like
really friends.
it's used as a tool more so than a genuine barrier. Um,
Yes.
and it really comes through clearly after the McDonald's episode when Shin-Ae reaches him across that table, and we all had our "oh my god" moment for like the first time about the two of them, where we're like, it's happening. Which he's still got a girlfriend at this point. Um, and they have those intimate moments with the hand holding and the chicken nuggets and the listening to music and being really close right in front of each other against the table. And he walks out and immediately tells Dieter that he's going to the party with this hidden eyes, with this scowl on his face, with this look of
No,
like,
no, no, no. That is after the tacos.
oh, that is after the tacos.
That is
You're right.
after the tacos. How, yeah.
The point still stands though.
Yeah,
I
the
got
point
my
still
thought wrong. The
stands.
point still stands. But as they're
Listen,
leaving town,
I got these ones like in
sorry,
my brain.
I
Don't
got mixed
worry.
up based on our previous conversation. But
But I have said before, I feel like the tacos conversation is one of their most intimate conversations because it is the most honest they're being with each other, especially considering that Noel is in the process of constantly trying to avoid Shin-Ae, but always, always failing to do so.
yeah,
Especially when he tells her why he asked her to invite Kosuke to Minhyuk's surprise party because he wants to see Kosuke in an uncomfortable environment where he is uncomfortable. And Shin-Ae has this internal thought that, oh, we both think the same. We both are having these terrible thoughts about a person. And he also has that confession of, I know you're more than capable of taking care of yourself and you don't
but
need me to,
yeah,
but I'm still going to worry about you. I
it won't
can't
stop me
help
from caring.
worrying. Yes. And I'm just like,
Yes,
that is so
and
intimate, you guys. That
and
is
he's
intimacy.
saying this while fully being dating Alyssa. And we
Mhm,
don't treat him as
mhm.
wrong for this because we understand that there's no love in that relationship. We understand that it's a business relationship. We understand that that girl's a lesbian and this boy is not in, like they don't have any sort of bond anymore.
We
But
celebrate it because that's our pairing, that's our ship.
we
We want
do.
him to have a relationship that's
And
reciprocal.
when he sends that text to Dieter, he's got that scowl on his face. He's got those
Oh my
hidden eyes. He's
gosh.
just had these intimate moments with Shin-Ae, and there's like a guilt to it where
Oh yes.
he knows that he shouldn't be doing this. And it's mostly, I think, because of the guilt he feels over getting close to her, because it's
Mhm.
genuine. But if we're going to hold Alyssa to the standard of being a real girlfriend, we also have to hold Noel to the standard of being a real boyfriend. And while
Yes.
emotional cheating is, I believe, more difficult to realize until it's kind of already a problem, whereas physical cheating, it's a lot easier to be like, I'm not going to touch that person. Um, Noel at this point is aware of it, and he doesn't put a stop to it. The only pullbacks that he has are because of his own guilt overburdening Shin-Ae's life and dragging her into harm, rather than any reservations about him being in a relationship, which we can easily excuse because we, as I mentioned, understand that it's not a real relationship. But if that's the standard, both of them have broken it. And Noel did first, presumably.
And even talking about how, like, yes, it is a lot more difficult to detect emotional cheating. And when this kind of intimacy has become a more romantically tinged intimacy, we go back to episode 151,
Oh
and
god.
that is an entirely romantic scene. That is in fact a painful breakup scene. Like, again, when we're looking at the hug, the fact that Shin-Ae saying was all of this fake is the trigger that finally gets him to reach out. The thing he has been denying himself for so long, reaches out, actually like pulls her into a hug. It's a hug, an embrace. That's what it is. It's an embrace. Like, his fingers are in her hair. He's clutching her. She has that moment where, like, she turns her face in towards the little crook of his neck. That is so fucking intimate. And when they pull away and he caresses her face, what is that, guys? Like, that is
Right.
so blatantly, he is acting on something. And, like, the only reason, like, nothing else happens is because he looks at her and he's reminded of how she looked when he pulled him out of the pool. And, like, that's when he remembers, I have to leave. I have to walk away in order to protect her. He
Right.
was caressing her face, you guys. You cannot tell me at this point he doesn't know what those feelings are. We get to the Christmas arc where he, like, goes and he looks at his spam
I
messages like
really
a
miss you.
dumbass. I really miss you, sad face emoji. And then
And then
he
he goes
goes
and
and
drowns his sorrows in drinks.
drinks Kosuke's weight in alcohol and becomes like such a belligerent jerk, tells Alyssa there is somewhere else that I would rather be, and that somewhere else is the party with Shin-Ae and his friends. Like, at the very least, even if you don't want
Right.
to count 151, by the time we're at this Christmas party where he's like, I'm so fucking over Alyssa, because he's like, oh my god, does Alyssa actually like my brother? Is that the reason she's still with me? He's straight up acting on the fact that he's got some feelings, and Shin-Ae missing him is making him feel a little something something.
Right. And then at the hospital arc, we have the finger dancing and the birthday presents and all of those intimate moments with Shay that are so. And him waking up and laying on her shoulder and, like,
Oh,
indirectly telling her that she feels like morphine to him.
he
He
also turns his face into the crook of her neck.
and
Just want to.
he flat out, essentially, when Dieter pushes him on it, basically confesses to Dieter that he does like Shin-Ae. He does have romantic feelings for her, and he's just using his girlfriend to deflect that because he thinks that it's a problem, not for those reasons, but a problem in general that he does. And then just a couple episodes later, when Alyssa comes by, he kind of gets on his high horse about
Mm-hmm.
her cheating on him, when look at what he's been doing. So once again, we see that, like, that kind of that convoluted responsibility and victimhood mentality happening in Noel, where, like, does he have
Mm-hmm.
a right to be upset that Alyssa has cheated on him? Yes. But does he have a right to be on his high horse about it and not recognize what he has been doing this whole time? Maybe not.
Right. And this isn't to say that Noel is a bad person for, being a hypocrite about this, because that is a very normal human thing. But it is more about the way that fandom views these two situations, how we look at Alyssa and we're like, oh my God, you were cheating on him. And not even in that situation, but even, the times where Sumin says that, oh, I mean, she's always texting someone, so I figured that has to be you. And, even then people are like, oh my God, she's been cheating on him, even though at this point it is established that this is a purely business relationship. They're only in this for their own personal benefits. You know, and it's like, again, like, the whole point Elle has been stressing is if we're viewing Alyssa as being a real girlfriend to Noel, why are we not viewing the same for Noel and the fact that he is engaging in cheating that we can actually see on page?
Yeah,
Because,
I
right,
don't
like,
personally blame either of them for it because
right,
this is a business
exactly.
relationship. Neither of them are in it for actual feelings. They both even acknowledged this. But if we're going to blame one of them, we have to blame both of them.
Right. Which is to say, why are we blaming either of them?
And then I think that covers that much.
To say, no, Noel is not the least complicated when it comes to victimhood versus responsibility.
Yeah, he can be a very sympathetic character, and he definitely has a lot of right to feel victimhood, but where he feels it is an interesting choice.
Right. And also, when it comes to that sympathetic character, how much of that is us as readers giving him leeway for things because of, those sympathetic angles?
And again, the point that he's at right now in terms of this responsibility versus victimhood experience is likely going to be very, very different pretty soon into the comics' return.
Anti-hero Noel is probably going to do a lot of things that
maybe he
Youngie
didn't do.
would. Right. And again, just because we always have to lay this out, we're not saying that Noel is ever going to do anything as bad as Yui does. The whole point of anti-hero Noel is, in fact, to demonstrate A, how these monsters are made, B, the kind of circumstances that create them, but also C, foil the way that he won't become Yui because he has things that she doesn't. He has people that he doesn't. He has these safety nets, these systems in place of people who care enough about him to hold him back from becoming that person. Also, he has a different set of moral codes than her and stuff like that. That is the whole point. But what we're getting at is, yeah, he's going to go on that revenge arc and he's probably going to harm people who don't need to be harmed and have to step back. And, like, again, we've already kind of seen this, right, with Alyssa coming to him and how this is directly paralleled to Kosuke having this memory of the day Noel came to him after his mother died and he turns this kid away. And it being the day that, Noel gets locked away makes it worse. And how Noel has done the very same thing to Alyssa when she came to him in a time of really great, desperate need. And he turned her away and made accusations. Like she comes to him after being assaulted and he's making accusations about how, she's cheated. He's implying that this is something she went out and chose to do. And he is going to have his own, Kosuke retching on the bathroom floor moment in the future when he realizes, he's done this as well. And, something like I meant to say earlier, especially about, how much we're allowed to blame people and our environments, and especially about this, is ultimately a lot of this is those cycles of abuse and trying to break free. Noel is repeating a cycle of something done to him. And, will he be able to prevent that again in the future? I believe hopefully so, but, like, what's it going to take before we get to that?
Yeah, exactly. And so that very much I feel like tackles why I don't agree that Noel is the least complicated. I mean, we're gonna have to look back on how much time we just spent talking about that. And there's more we could have said.
Listen. We are what we are.
We are no, but I'm just saying, like, it makes the point, right, that he's not the
Right.
least complicated because we can spend that long talking about it and still could have more to say. Um,
Right.
as
And that
far
is
as
what makes him a great character. Is like it
oh
is that
yeah,
complexity, you know?
and then as far as taking responsibility, who who are we first kind of interested in exploring what that might look like?
Let's start with Kosuke because I think he is a little bit easier.
Okay, and so oh, I heard you breathe.
Obviously, huh?
I started talking. And I was like, oh, Ashley, breathe. It's her turn.
um, so obviously with Kosuke, he's kind of in that process that I think is going to lead to his eventual accountability. Um, he's going to need some healing first because it's one thing to kind of be able to start acknowledging your own personal guilt, but that doesn't mean you're going to be ready to actually tackle it, you know? There's having guilt and then there is facing guilt. He's kind of had that moment of accountability already where he, sits bashes Noel into the ground and then sits over his body, crying about how every time I look at you, you remind me of these parts of Rand that I've never gotten to meet, and you just remind me that there's this version of himself out there that he's not showing me, and it makes me feel like I'm a failure, and I'm so scared that I'm going to live in your shadow, and I hate you for that, and I hate you for making me know that there's this version of him, and for the reason that I'm always trying so hard to get to him, and I'm so scared that you're going to outshine me and that you got all of the good parts of him that ever existed and all I got were all of the terrible parts of him, and that all I've seen is the back of this man who doesn't care about me. He's at least admitted to Noel what he's done and why he's done it. Obviously that's not full accountability, but acknowledgement is a really important first step. We're also seeing that reversal of roles with the characters where it's been Noel who has tried, well, I guess he kind of had like stopped reaching out, but like Noel who used to reach out to Kosuke, and that switching of like the golden boy versus the sad soggy mess. But Noel has like really severed those ties and cut off that bridge. So I think the thing for Kosuke is, will he continue reaching out to Noel, or will he give up on that? That part I'm not certain of, but something I do strongly feel is that accountability for Kosuke will probably ultimately be teaming up with Noel and Shin-Ae
Yeah.
to take down his mother, especially because Kosuke, better than many people, knows what Yui is like and how she operates, and therefore, it's partly him being able to take some control back of his own life, but largely I think it is proving a lot to Noel if he is willing to go against his own family. And I think that is probably part of what his accountability will look like. And I do think if he does try to reach out to Noel, even if Noel continues to shut him out, maybe that's part of it, trying to prove that I know I've fucked up, but I want to try. Again, obviously, Noel might not even receive that because he doesn't want to, and that's perfectly fine. But I do think maybe a combination of that and Kosuke being willing to go against his mother and against his family, especially if, Noel has plans that involve dismantling the system or dismantling the Hirahara company as it currently stands, making alterations to it, etc., etc. I think that would kind of, show that Kosuke is willing to change and leave all of this behind. I think that is a big part of accountability, because ultimately, right, accountability is, proving that acknowledging what you've done, but also proving that you regret it. And for Noel, it's going to take a lot to prove that you actually regret what you've done when you literally destroyed a child and spent his entire life just stomping on him and beating him until he was broken and left nothing but a pile of bones.
And I think I think something that's kind of interesting with Kosuke's potential accountability is that I agree that one of the big things is Kosuke really teaming up with them and
Hmm.
helping to dismantle the system that has benefited Kosuke at the expense of Noel and has been such an active negative force in Noel's life
Hmm.
that Kosuke has just kind of always been like, well, of course, um,
Right.
or actively helped make Noel's life harder. Um, so that kind of one aspect of like an aspect before that is truthfully just backing off of Noel
Yeah.
because he's been spending so much time actively interfering in Noel's life and actively being like a paranoid presence around Noel that one aspect is just letting go of that and letting Noel
Yeah.
be who he is. And then another aspect is helping Noel actually forge his own space and kind of repent for all of the barriers that Kosuke had previously helped to put in place. But
Hmm. Hmm.
another interesting aspect of it with Kosuke is part of the reason why what Kosuke has done to Noel is so horrible is because Noel really just wanted to be brothers with Kosuke and wanted Kosuke
Hmm.
to be himself. And those
Yes.
were things that Kosuke not only didn't do and couldn't do, but so strongly rejected. And I think it says a lot when Noel gives Kosuke so many compliments at the Christmas party and says things like, I wish I could hear, like, I wish you still played piano. I would love to hear it again. Where part of Kosuke's accountability, which I think would feel wrong to people who are feeling like spiteful and vengeful to what Kosuke did, but does make sense with what Noel has always asked for and wanted from him, is for Kosuke to start being himself, for Kosuke to
Yes.
start living his own life. So like he needs to let Noel live Noel's life, and he needs to kind of help dismantle this suffocating presence that's been on them all that Kosuke has been aligned with this whole time at the expense of Noel. But Kosuke also needs to live his own life, which would show a lot of respect to Noel.
Yes.
And it feels wrong because it's like, well, to some people it would feel wrong because it's like, well, why does Kosuke get to be happy and himself and like all of this, and that's his penance, that's his accountability. But accountability is not the same as punishment. And
Right.
Noel wants Kosuke to be able
Yes.
to live that life.
I wasn't sure where that would fit into the timeline, so I didn't mention it. But like right after I had stopped talking, I was like, "Oh my God, I should have said this." And I knew you would bring this up, so I'm glad you did. Because right, that is like the thing that disappoints Noel so much about Kosuke outside of, the general abuse is that at no point has Kosuke ever stopped caring about the word of God, aka Father Rand.
Mhm.
Um, that he continues to just, like do blindly whatever it is Rand says. Him telling him that the music he liked the most was what Kosuke played on the piano and how he wishes that he never stopped, like haunts me forever.
Mhm.
Um, and just like the idea of Kosuke one day actually going back to piano and, maybe Noel and Kosuke being able to kind of be brothers and, Noel getting to listen to him play the piano again.
Mhm.
We can't go into the brother crying hours, so I'm not even going to dig into that. But yeah, I think, and like you said, accountability is not punishment. Accountability is showing that you can move on from something. And for Kosuke to be able to let go of all of that and be able to live his own life and forge his own identity, I think really is the ultimate accountability because it shows that he is not that person anymore. He is
Mhm.
not those people anymore. He has set himself free of what molded him into the very person who abused Noel in the first place.
Exactly.
Oh no, not the crying emojis in the chat.
Oh, now this time the viewers will be able to see the crying emojis in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
with less than a 6-month wait. We're planning ahead now, guys. We've learned from our mistakes.
Now, as for Alyssa, I'll let you start this one.
I think Alyssa's actually a tough one as far as
Yes.
accountability.
Because I think there's what fandom wants from Alyssa, and then there's what do we reasonably think Alyssa would be capable of,
And like
/ what's accountability to Noel and Shin-Ae.
to the people around her. And I think it looks very different between the two of them. I think
Oh,
what
yes.
accountability looks like depends on who you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
With Shin-Ae, I think that we see something kind of similar to Kosuke, where like we know that Shin-Ae still cares about Alyssa and always cared about her. And what she really wanted from Alyssa was similar to Kosuke, Alyssa to find the confidence to be herself and to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think accountability for Alyssa with Shin-Ae would probably look like having some real acknowledgement to Shin-Ae and honesty with her about everything that Alyssa felt and everything that she has been through. And I think that's what Shin-Ae would want to know, because she's so much of what hurts her is that lack of closure, that lack of understanding what happened and what went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those girls really need and would benefit from that sort of conversation. And Alyssa, again, like in the way that she does manage to acknowledge what has happened and where she's at, is like giving Shin-Ae the chicky sweater, where
Yes.
she wants to kind of have a reconciliation like that, and she feels guilty and she wants to apologize, but she can't bring herself to. I
Mm-hmm.
think accountability with Shin-Ae would be Alyssa finding the courage to bring herself to have those conversations and finding the courage to be able to be herself and express herself authentically, even if that's behind closed doors. Like, even if that's
Mm-hmm.
not in the public, just some amount of that, because that is what Shin-Ae always wanted from her. She doesn't want, she doesn't want money for the medical bills. She doesn't want reparations that way. She doesn't want, but like, she doesn't want like material things.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't want Alyssa to suffer. She just wants that honesty and expression and understanding.
And you know how very strongly I feel about like Shin-Ae possibly ever being one of the few people who actually knows Alyssa's like deep dark secret and being like a comforting force to her.
Mhm.
And because like obviously the thing that Alyssa fears the most is that people are going to feel the way that her father feels and the way that the kids who bullied her feel. Like that's why she was so scared of Shin-Ae ever finding out. Because like what if Shin-Ae has that reaction that like, oh, ew, you're like that? And also, oh, ew, do you like me? Ew. And like, we know Shin-Ae would never have felt that way. So like, the idea of Alyssa ever being able to have that courage and open up and be able to tell Shin-Ae, and then actually get that validation that she has sought so hard from Shin-Ae. Hold on, I'm being really careful here. Oh no. Where Shin-Ae would validate her for who she is and wouldn't hold that against her and would accept her as she is, because she was always going to do that and she was never going to feel icked out. Like even if Alyssa found the courage to be, really honest about it and admit the crush that she had on her, I think Shanae's reaction would be something like, like, really? I never would have even known that from the way that you
Yeah.
treated me. Like
Yeah.
she wouldn't even be disgusted. And like
No,
we
that
know how
she
much
just wants
Alyssa
to know.
Right. We know how much Alyssa needed that validation. We know how much closure means to Shin-Ae, who, right, she just wanted to know. She just wanted to understand. When we see Alyssa appear in the list of everyone who makes Shin-Ae mad when she's like beating on Dita's bear suit, it's not because she hates Alyssa, it's because she cares so much and she felt so hurt and betrayed, and because she doesn't understand why she was betrayed. So yes, I
Exactly.
think accountability from Alyssa towards Shin-Ae is simply having the courage to be honest. Because,
Mhm.
for Shin-Ae, it's not just that it's not just that Alyssa wasn't able to talk to her. It's that she was afraid to do it. Like every time we see Alyssa kind of shrink, or every time we see her, latch onto some new harebrained popularity scheme, we see Shanae's face fall. So yeah, a lot, again, they are that parallel foil quadrant, in the same way that Kosuke and Noel have that, I just want to see you be brave enough to be yourself. Yes, Alyssa and Shin-Ae are very much, I just want you to be brave enough to be you. I wish you could have felt confident to be the smart, nerdy biomedical engineer girl who didn't like K-pop, instead of feeling like you had to bend to the whims of these kids when you were already so cool on your own.
Exactly. And then with other characters, particularly Noel, I think it looks
Mm.
very different. Noel has a much more complicated relationship with her. Um,
Yes.
and I
I
think,
feel like it largely depends on if he can ever conceptualize or grasp that Alyssa was also a victim of Yui.
yeah. And like to a certain extent, I think that he thinks he wants honesty and expression from her, but but I don't know that what he thinks that means is what it actually means, you know?
I
Um,
mean, I go back and forth on this, right? Because obviously, part of why Noel is very hurt by his relationship with Alyssa is he tried to have a real relationship. Um, we know that there was. Wait, was this in Curious Cat or not?
it was in Curious Cat where
Okay,
Kimchi
phew,
said
I
that
can
they
say
Kimchi
there was
said
that failed attempt at a little
at,
smoochie kiss.
I know, and Kimchi said that they did like each other, but they never loved each other. They were two
Hmm.
confused, traumatized kids trying to navigate things.
Right. And for Noel, it was probably, like this is the first girl that he's ever been in a position to like. And I've talked a lot in the server about how like there's a lot of difference between like what is a crush and what is liking and what is romantic liking. Um and so Noel trying to like, oh, I like her, she's this interesting girl, she's pretty, like I want to try this as a relationship. Obviously, Alyssa doesn't have that same kind of like for Noel. We also can infer that she saw a lot of Shin-Ae in Youngie, um, which I don't think she was, like trying to make herself like him for that reason. I do think she saw the possibility of dating Noel as a safety thing, because then she doesn't have to worry about why she's not dating a boy.
Yeah.
But
And I do think with seeing a lot of Chanel, I do think that she kind of probably looked at it as an opportunity for like redemption almost, where it was like
mhm.
I I fell in love with this spunky, bright, smiley girl in middle school, and that was a problem. That was wrong. That is like morally wrong of me to have done. And here's someone who looks basically like her twin counterpart, if we discount the whole redhead Irish thing, um, in male form, which is acceptable. And she's like, if I could fall in love with that as a girl, surely I can make a relationship with that as a boy, and then it means that I'm not wrong, right? And then
Here's
it
the
doesn't
boy
work.
version of the girl I love.
Exactly.
Um, but we do
Exactly.
know some of Noel's resentment stems from the fact that he liked her and he feels like she never liked him back. So talking about like, does he really want the truth? There's this part of me is like, would it like at least provide him some ease if he knew that she was never ever going to be into him because,
Right. Like, I think there's certain amounts of honesty that would be
yes.
helpful and that he does want and does
Yes.
need. But I think there's more to it than that. Where like with Shin-Ae, it's just the honesty. But with Noel, there's so much resentment coming from so many places.
Right.
It's like I'm not really sure what he wants from her.
I think the only accountability that Alyssa could actually provide Noel would be God, I don't know. Like I was gonna say, I guess to maybe acknowledge that yes, she was bad at confrontation and she deflected sometimes. I think that is the most she can give him because, like, it's not that she was a bad girlfriend because they weren't.
Yeah, I think probably acknowledging, the ways in which she has hurt him
Right.
and
Like
like
she could
not
acknowledge.
deflecting it.
Right. She could acknowledge, I'm sorry I wasn't, there for you as much. I'm sorry we stopped talking as much. Something that once we learned about the failed attempt at a kiss was, so something that people started supposing was, could it be that Alyssa started pulling away from him a little after that because, she didn't know how to deal with that and she was worried that maybe he would try it again and she didn't know how to put a stop to it.
Right. How do I tell my boyfriend that I don't want to kiss him because I'm not into boys?
Right. So, like if she could acknowledge that, yeah, I was actually more distant. And I did, like the friendship that we used to have dissolved after we started dating. But I obviously like the thing with Alyssa and Noel is this isn't like Shin-Ae and Alyssa or Kosuke and Noel because they both kind of hurt each other, like it feels like it had, accountability is like it's all well and good if she's acknowledging these things, but would he also be acknowledging things? It's he's made a lot of accusations of her. I think like their ultimate accountability really would need to be, I I was so busy wearing my own mask that I couldn't see, I took you at face value and so did you. What am I trying to say here?
I do
Essentially,
agree. I think that's the kind of conversation that they need to have.
right. Like being able to acknowledge, I was so caught up in my own problems, I was never able to realize that you also had problems of your own. And, just basically the whole, I was never able to. Bombi doesn't know that she's not muted. Hold on. I will mute her. There we go. Going back to what I was saying. Right. I think they need to have that conversation about how they weren't able to see what the other one was going through, but also that because of that, they never confided in the other, but they also expected the other to know what they were going through. Like, I saw this conversation happening in the chat, and I know this conversation has come up before, but we kind of have that issue where Noel tells us through Shin-Ae that he did try warning Alyssa about Yui, but we know Noel isn't really confident about what Yui does and her role of villainy, I guess, in his life. And we've also seen how he tried to warn Shin-Ae about Yui. It's been brought up that maybe the reason he warned Shin-Ae the way he did was because he didn't expect her to really believe him, so he didn't make an effort. But if that's the case, that was a really shitty move. But, you know, we look at Noel and Alyssa, and we have to remember what the scenario is. Alyssa comes from a household where she doesn't really have a strong mother figure. She meets glamorous, gorgeous, independent Yui, who, for all intents and purposes, looks like this wonderful woman, who basically comes sweeping in, promising that she can make Alyssa's dreams come true. We don't know what Noel actually told Alyssa, but Alyssa tells Noel later that she thought that, you know, that their issues were like, I thought it was like, you know, adjusting to a new stepmom, which, you know, makes sense for the situation. Obviously, you can argue that, you know, Alyssa should have believed Noel. But the other thing is, you know, how very likely is it that Yui was pulling Alyssa aside and they were having little tea sessions and she was saying things like, oh, I'm so glad that you're around for Noel. You know, he's really going through some things, blah, 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 just released from the hospital. And I've just been so worried about him. He's such a troubled boy. And then talking about how, like, I've been trying so hard to reach him, but he just refuses all my efforts. And how easily that can influence the mind of a, 14, 15-year-old girl?
Yeah. And also, like, what can't be discounted is Alyssa very likely had, like, a little teenage crush on
Mm-hmm.
Yui, and so that automatically kind of gives her a credibility that she didn't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
You
I
want to
very
impress her. You want to do things that make her proud of
yeah,
you.
and so I very much feel like accountability for Alyssa with Noel looks like having that sort of conversation of
I should have listened to
directly,
you.
yeah, directly and genuinely acknowledging all the times that they hurt each other, all the times that they didn't listen to each other,
Mm-hmm.
why they didn't listen to each other, not in like a excusey way, but just like in an honest way.
Mm-hmm.
And I, on the one hand, I feel like it also like looks like Alyssa either kind of changing her trajectory or letting in help to help her with her situation. But I don't even know if it's truly necessary after that conversation. Like, obviously, I think that's the better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
um, but if they were to have that sort of conversation, do I think that Noel would require that in order to feel like she's being held accountable? Or would he be able to, like a good amount of readers have, accept that she has been very much existing within her circumstances and attempting to find safety? We know that he'll still want her to change her trajectory and pull back, and similar to like be herself. But does that really impact how he feels about accountability, or is that just what he would want?
Right. I think like the ultimate accountability is simply just having that honest conversation. And then,
Mhm.
you know, whether or not she changes her path doesn't really matter because, you know, at that point, it's not necessarily accountability. That's more concern.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I think that's kind of what it looks like for Alyssa with both Shin-Ae and Noel, and the ways in which it looks similar and the ways in which it looks different.
Yeah. What other care? Oh, Rand. I guess there's Rand, but we kind of know that there's not going to be accountability, but we can discuss what accountability would look like if it was actually to happen.
Oh, Ren.
Oh,
Oh,
Rand.
Ren. Which things are we holding him accountable for?
Right. And like, oh, I wrote Rand the damned. So, you know, obviously I've kind of started to explore this already. I've also been talking about this really recently in the server. Again, you know, we've been having these I love you hangout discussions. So, you know, if you want to talk more I love you, you can join us. Um, Rand is a very interesting character because to me, he is an example of somebody who is absolutely trapped. His hands are completely tied. However, does that absolve him of, you know, the trauma that his sons have collected as a result of essentially his negligence? And, you know, the general consensus is obviously not really, but it's complicated because what do you do when you're in this position where your hands truly are tied, where you know that if you make certain moves, it will hurt not only you, but it will affect the kids. Because that's essentially what Rand's issue is, right? We know he cannot show fatherly affection towards Noel because Yui will punish him. Noel's existence alone is a problem. But the fact that he could show any affection towards Noel, that he could actually treat him as a son, Yui's not going to kill Noel because she needs him around for, you know, controlling Kosuke. But there's plenty of ways that she can continue to harm him. I mean, you know, she continues to do this. Punishing him is a game to her. Rand tries to do everything he can to prevent that. That's, you know, I talk a lot about Rand and his double meaning words, and like the way he talks to Noel at the formal is largely why he says the things to Noel that he does. You know, it comes off saying like, you're an embarrassment, you're a blight on this family, you make me look bad, I wish you didn't exist. But a lot of the times, in a way, he's trying to say, you know, like, stay out of trouble, because if you get in trouble, things get worse. You know, it's kind of saying, you know, stay in your lane and do these things so that she doesn't come after you more.
And
Likewise, oh yeah,
I was gonna say with Rand, I feel like he is in an accountability arc where he's
yes,
attempting to kind of repair some of this damage that he's done to his sons and set them up for the future at the expense of himself. And I feel like that
yes,
is very much what he needs to do. But I feel like that's like 80% of the way there.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like the remaining 20 is like, he needs to sit down with his sons and he needs to talk to
Yes.
them. And he needs to be honest with them about the circumstances that he's been in, all the double meanings that he's given them, the way he actually feels about them, what he wants for their lives. Like,
Rand taking Noel to a hospital that is not Hirahara Memorial so that Yui does not know where he is, and so that Yui can't come in and find him, but also so nobody can overhear things,
yeah.
nobody can spy. Would have been such a good opportunity for Rand to go in and sit down with Noel and say, I know you don't want to have this conversation, so at least just let me talk to you, let me explain some things to you. You know, like Noel wouldn't have to accept what he's saying, but at least if Rand could have done that much and said that much,
Rand
like,
needs to communicate it, even if they're not ready to hear
exactly.
it.
Rand saying my presence would have made things worse. Like, in a way, you're probably right. But sometimes you have to just go through it. Because if he had just sat down and said, you know, I know you don't want me here and I know you're going to ignore this, but I want to tell you what you mean to me and explain to you why I've treated you like this all these years and apologize for the way I've treated you and apologize for the things that I have said. I want you to understand that I know Yui, you know, I know
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying to
know
think of
Yui.
what he would say. I know Yui, right. You
And
know, I'm
like,
aware of
it's
how
kind of
Yui
like,
has treated you and
yeah.
I've done what I can to mitigate things, but sometimes it's really hard
as
because
well as as well as the like, I've been doing what I felt like was right to mitigate things and put you in the best position as possible, but I acknowledge how much it
mhm.
hurt you along the way, and that I probably I'm not sure if I could have, in a like there, I might have been able to, I might have not, but that I should have done something different for you.
Yes. Like, Rand had every opportunity to sit there and have that conversation with him. And while I acknowledge that Rand's hands are tied and that there wasn't a lot that he could have done most of Noel and Kosuke's lives, this is the moment I begrudge him because you had an opportunity. He's literally in a hospital that Yui has no control over, had no idea where he was. Like, even if Noel wasn't ready to receive you, just being able to say those words so that one day Noel might be able to think back on them and actually, reach a point of being like, I think I understand. I think I get it. It doesn't mean that Noel would have had to forgive him. It doesn't mean that Noel would have had to accept it. Just like we said
But
with
just
Kosuke.
putting it out there.
Right. Like we said with Kosuke, he would reserve all rights to still be angry and hurt because it doesn't change that Rand was a shitty father and that he never felt any love from him and that he always felt like he was nothing but a stain on the family. But having those words out there means that one day he maybe could have internalized it and realized that, I get it. I think in his own way, he did love me, especially because, like, in that moment after the hearing, when Rand like slams him into the wall and starts saying all of these horrible things, which again have like those double meanings. I think it's more meta. I don't know actually. Like maybe Rand, I don't know. It's really hard to read with him.
I think that one is
Right.
meta, and the double meanings are still there, and they could be
Right.
perceived by Noel, and they're intentional in the fact that he's saying what he feels, but I don't
Right.
think they're attempting to convey something to him as
Right.
opposed
Right.
to some of the other double meanings.
But how, he's sitting there and remembering Eugene saying, like, we're hardest on the ones we love the most. Like, he could have had that moment again where he thinks, to what Eugene said one day, and he connects what Rand told him, and he's like, I think I see it now. But Rand denied him that opportunity. Rand goes, you know what? He's got people by his side now. No, you dumbass. He's trying to leave everybody. Your son is kind of a dum-dum. Like, he needed a father.
Right. He's doing the part of the accountability where he's setting his sons up for better, legitimately in the future, and he's giving himself up in order to do it. But he's still continuing to ignore the point of these boys need and want their dad, and he's not being that, and he cares about them, but he doesn't let that come through in a way that they can receive. And he needs to get that other portion out there by putting out that care in a way that his sons could potentially one day receive, where he's leaving his little hints and messages now, but he's not really putting it out there. And like we said, even with what he's currently leaving behind, they're going to have to make peace with that ghost, and that is where he's falling short on the accountability. He's doing a lot right now to take accountability for everything so far, but he's not quite there. And thinking about the whole concept of like making peace with a ghost, I think another interesting part of Rand's accountability is, what does it look like for Nessa?
Accountability for Nessa would have been taking care of their child.
I agree, that's the biggest one.
Accountability for Nessa would have been not paying her off to have an abortion and then trying to give her money that feels like hush money after her mother kicked her out for having an abortion. Accountability would have been not having sex with her and leading her to believe that he has actually left his wife, and oopsie, no, we're just separated, it's not actually official. Accountability, like he done, listen, Rand done fucked that shit up.
Yeah, I think truthfully, like, once things had kind of gotten this far with Nessa, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
basically the only accountability he could have had was
Leaving
finding,
her alone.
yeah, finding somewhere in the world to send her off to be alone, warning her fully about what his wife is,
Mm-hmm.
and setting her up for the rest of her life and leaving her alone. And if he wasn't going to leave her alone, he needs to make the actual choice to be with Nessa and leave everything else
Mm-hmm.
behind officially.
And if he was going to leave her alone, it had to be, I'm actually making this decision. We cannot communicate because we're
Yeah.
very certain that, that is what led Nessa there in the first place.
If you hear anything from me, it's not me. Do not trust it, even if no matter how much it looks like me.
Right. Like,
And
Rand
like,
just should have left her be. Like, that's
yeah.
the answer. That's
And I mean, she
accountability.
herself said that. She was like, everyone told me.
Mm,
Or she was like, I knew I shouldn't have gotten involved with you again. I should have left you behind and skipped town the second you came back. And she's kind of right. Um
yep.
and once she's died, I don't think there's any full accountability that he can
No.
take for his role in her life. Like it's too much. Nothing can ever fix. Nothing can
Short
fix her getting
of
disowned. Nothing can fix her son being a target. Nothing can fix
exactly.
her being gone. And the closest that he can get is being the best possible father to Noel that he can.
Mm-hmm.
And if
And it
he
can't be that if he
Yep.
wants to be a father to Kosuke as well. So, what is the compromise? Being the shittiest father to both.
Yeah. He really aced
Oh.
that one.
God. Oh, that's so horrible. I'm so sorry, Leo. I know. Wait, is Leo still here?
Um,
I think we lost Leo.
I think we
Okay.
lost Leo.
Well, I'm so sorry to you, Leo. It's just, yeah, Rand, when it comes to accountability, he really screwed that one up. It's just Nessa, girl.
Or Nessa.
He must have like really meant something to you because girl. But also like the thing that always gets me, right, is that he really led her to believe that, there was some kind of
Yeah.
separation, like and then, he comes here like, here's some money so that you can abort it. I'm going to go back to my rich family and my other son after you've just, aborted your child and gotten kicked out by your mother. Rand's going to go to the afterlife and Nessa's going to be there waiting with a freaking frying pan in her hand. And she's going to be like, that's what you did after I
You
did. That's
screw
how
this up
you.
so badly.
Right? God.
And Lemon Shark says, and what if I say that Rand and Noel share the same victim mentality and try to warn people about the dangers they are perfectly aware of, but do it in the worst way possible?
Noel doesn't want to admit it, but he is so much like his father.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's Rand. He has potential with his sons. He's on his way there. He's missing the be an emotionally present dad part, and there's nothing on earth he can do about Nessa anymore, and what he could have done in the moment was already not that great.
We're not even touching on the fact that, like, what is accountability for Rand to Nana? There's nothing he can do.
No.
he got her daughter involved in this family, and now her daughter is dead, and there is nothing he could do about it. It's like
Nana and Rand have this interesting relationship with accountability. They're like, both of them are so at fault for how their relationships with Nessa ended, and the way that the two of them played into how both of their relationships with Nessa ended, and the way that the two of them both played out in what happened to Nessa and the way that they weren't there for her. And
yep.
both of them owe accountability to each other, but more so, both of them played into the accountability that they both owe to Nessa.
Yeah. When each of them reach the afterlife, Nessa's frying pan is going to see a lot of action.
Mhm.
Deservedly. That's accountability for Nessa.
There's sometimes when a little bit of punishment might be part of the equation.
You know,
And
sometimes as a
that
treat.
that actually, I do want to touch a little bit on what, if anything, does accountability look like for Yui?
Oh God.
And
Are we talking about what do we think she would do? Are we talking about what we
what
want
would
from her?
what would she need to do? Like, what would be
Oh
appropriate?
man. Oh man.
Yeah, it's a big question because we always talk about Yui as this character where, she is really pretty past the point of redemption. What she has done has crossed
Yes.
so far beyond what she needs to do to survive that it's not justified, it's not valid, it's not necessary. And we've said that she likely in the series won't really see repercussion from it because she's that 1%. She's going to get taken down, but will she really have to atone for anything? Quite possibly not. And
Right.
I feel like one of the biggest ones is to stop. She needs to
I mean,
stop.
yes, obviously.
um
Acknowledge that she's been doing this because she enjoys it, not because anybody deserves it.
mhm. And
But does
I
any of that feel like accountability?
right. I think that's like the bare minimum. Um
Yeah.
and I feel like she and by extension the Kims, but I don't think that we really need to get into the Kims for this
Oof.
question. I feel like we can think enough about what should happen to the Kims. Um, but I feel like with her and the Kims is really the first time that I start to feel like maybe there's no accountability without some form of punishment.
Yeah.
Because,
Because
oh, I was going to say, because even as much as she is hurting people as a long term extension of how she has been hurt, she is going after so many innocent people and taking
mhm.
joy in it in a way that no one else is. And I think that's where we start to bridge into, do you deserve to be punished in order for there to be accountability? Can you find accountability without receiving negativity?
Right. And kind of like nothing will feel like accountability for people who have caused so much harm. That's like, ooh, yay, you're acknowledging that you've hurt people. Wow, bare
Yeah, what do you
minimum.
do?
Good job. Right, like very whoop-de-doo. Um, as like you said, I don't know that there's much because here's the thing, Yui does know that she's hurting people.
Mhm.
Like,
It's an active
even right, even if she is even if she is rationalized or justified in her mind that people deserve things, whether it's because they're just that weak, or whether it's because she believes that, like these are people who, will try to bring me down, so I have to bring them down first. Or, like we think she has that twisted mentality that, she's got to break girls in order for them to rebuild themselves stronger. Otherwise, they're weak and someone was going to break them eventually anyway, you know. Joining Gun in his act of trafficking girls because, hey, at least it gives me some power, it gives me some control. Like, it's not accountability for her to acknowledge it because she knows it. She knows what
Yeah.
she's doing. So that's
But
not
there has to be
accountability.
some sort of repercussion, some sort of true consequence to her.
Right. Like, I feel like what we're establishing here is that accountability is essentially acknowledging to the person you have hurt that, yeah, I've hurt you. And for that, I actually feel regret and sorrow. And I want to work on that and I want to atone it. And we've
Yeah.
established that atoning is not necessarily a punishment. Atoning
Atoning
can
is like
just be,
reparations rather than punishment.
yes, Right. Atoning can be just changing the way that you live your life and becoming a different person. Yui's not ever going to change her life and be a different person. Like, that would be accountability, but like realistically, she's not. Like, it's not her mindset. She so deeply believes that she is right. The world has validated that she's correct. She's literally at the point that she believes God favors her and thinks what she's doing is right. Like,
yeah. Yui needs to lose something in exchange for all that she has gained in innocent people's suffering.
yes. And like, at that point, what should be lost? Like, so like realistically, right, you think, okay, obviously the thing that she needs to lose is her connection to the Hirahara company and fortune, but that's the thing that made her. So losing that doesn't do anything, because also technically she doesn't even really have that. Like, she's fighting tooth and claw for that. So like, even though she gets to live those riches and, you know, she carries the name, stripping her of that doesn't do anything, because it just fuels her. That resentment is what carries her. So like, what?
I'm like,
I mean,
is
and
the
this is
only answer prison?
right. And I was going to say, this is why people want Yui to be imprisoned, because, you know, then she's put into, you know, a situation where she doesn't have the things. Obviously, if Yui was put into prison, she would be put into Martha Stewart style prison, because she is the 1%, and then it would be a cushy prison.
It's that loss of control and freedom, where like, even if she's cushy, even if she still has her assets, she still has to.
Yui's going to go into prison and she's going to manipulate all of those inmates, and she's just going to be a ringleader of the prison. She's not going to lose control, like, unless they put her in isolation. And again, she's the 1%. Is she going to wind up in solitary confinement?
It's like, she would need to she would need to actually actually lose something. And it's like, how do you make this woman lose something when she's not going to volunteer for it?
Right.
And I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily up to us to answer,
right.
But I think
like,
that's
we're
the
not
thought.
the judicial branch.
Yeah, but that's the thought. So like, Yui, in addition to just cease, stop doing it.
just cease and desist, please.
Just cease and desist is also like, she feels like she requires some form of punishment in order to be able to provide reparations.
And I think this goes all the way back to the first question being, you know, like, how much are you allowed to blame someone? Where, you know, we've discussed Yui is that extreme where she is entirely to blame for things because she has taken it too far. She is at that point where she takes enjoyment out of the things that she does, and she does it for funsies. She does it as entertainment. She does it because, you know, it's a thrilling game to her. And therefore, I think it makes sense then that accountability in that situation is, yes, a punishment, because what other accountability is fitting of somebody who finds playing with people's lives to be a game?
Yeah, no, exactly. And further on this question, is there anyone else that at this point in the comic, with where they are, we feel like we really want to talk about with accountability? I feel like this is an interesting question to revisit later on as some of our characters have done more things. Is there anyone else that we want to talk about now?
I don't think there's a lot to dig into this, but because it's something that Shin-Ae is harping on and fandom has had some feelings about, what is accountability for Soshi? I mean, I think he's already, you know, starting. He's kind of been on an accountability path, but, you know, let's throw it out there.
I think the first thing, which he's kind of already doing, is similar to Yui. Stop.
Yes, cease and desist.
Stop it. Where he for the past while that we've seen him has not really. He's been intentionally bad at his job. where he's hiding things from Kosuke. He's kind of giving Kosuke like non-answers or little snarky answers to
He's a
avoid.
lazy informant.
Yeah, he's a lazy informant. He's trying to kind of weasel his way out of the job out of respect to Noel without actually losing the job, which also is not just selfish in the Sochi needs Kosuke's money way, but it is actually a bit for Noel because once Sochi was in the picture, Kosuke stopped like hawkeyeing over them.
Yes, he stopped hanging out with them.
Yeah, so it does benefit Noel for Sochi to kind of stay on payroll and just be bad at his job.
Yeah.
And so that is the first thing that he's already starting to do because he feels bad about it. He's in the stop it phase. But beyond that, I think again this is one where actually I don't know that I feel like this is one where honesty is really required. I think acting on the bond he has with Noel is part of it. Where Noel doesn't knows. He knows that there's something weird about Sochi and Kosuke's relationship. He knows
he's very perceptive. He would have clocked that once Sochi, was like, yeah, we'll be friends and started to hang around. Suddenly, Kosuke doesn't want to play babysitter anymore.
Yeah, Noel knows, but we don't see Noel holding resentment towards Sochi for this because
he also never entered those friendships with genuine intentions.
Yeah, and this is the understanding piece that has been so important with everyone else, where Noel understands why Sochi has been doing what he's doing, and they can both feel that bond has shifted from being one of obligation to being something real, and that they're not in the interest of betraying each other anymore.
Right.
And so I think in those two ways, Sochi is already being accountable to Noel for what he's done. And I think also Sochi kind of being this weird little friend to Kosuke, also part of this accountability, where that plays upon what Noel has always wanted for Kosuke in a weird way. And it's also morally righteous of Sochi to be doing in this situation, to kind of be mediating these relationships with Kosuke and Noel and filling in what both of them need, while also being intentionally bad at the job he was actually hired to do.
Right.
And so I think Sochi really is being accountable to Noel with who he currently is. And I think it's everyone on the periphery who is more so in a blame spot with him.
Yeah.
Who have other feelings about it.
When I asked the question, I was thinking about the fact that Sochi was there at all for the birthday. The fact that Sochi, like Dita, was covered in Noel's blood because, he was trying to help get him moved. That, Sochi has proven over and over that he cares about Noel more than he actually cares about the paycheck he's receiving.
Yeah.
Like you said, we have seen the way that he is very lackadaisical about actually being an informant and that he doesn't really do a great job.
And Julie, as an aside on you were going to read it.
Oh yeah.
Juliet asked, is Kosuke aware that Sochi is doing a bad job? Is he aware? Absolutely. Kosuke even sometimes kind of yells at him for this. Is he aware that the bad job is intentional and not just incompetence? I don't think so.
I don't think so. He thinks Sochi's just like that. Yeah. And to be fair, it kind of fits the personality that Sochi,
Sochi is
portrays.
His personality.
And I did want to touch on what you were saying about the people on the peripheral. Especially Shin-Ae's very self-righteous anger at Soshi. And Soshi does show regret and remorse for it. I don't think Soshi is quite aware that Noel probably knows.
Yeah, I think he feels so guilty because I think he thinks that Noel doesn't know.
Right. And, it's one of those things where, going all the way back to what we were talking about at the beginning with Shin-Ae and her slower processing, combined with Shin-Ae being in this state of intense emotions. She's high stress. She's very upset. The boy she has a crushy-wushy on has turned himself into jail, and she's super upset. She obviously needs a punching bag, so she's a very convenient punching bag. And she's not able to connect dots because, Noel literally told her, or rather told little buddy, that when he began these friendships, it wasn't genuine. He didn't actually want to be their friends. He wanted to help them. So if Noel enters this fake friendship with Soshi and he notices that Kosuke is no longer babysitting them, and suddenly this kid who has been getting bullied for not who doesn't have any money suddenly has money, he's gonna make some connections. He's going to understand. He is, in fact, directly benefiting Soshi's life like he wanted to, because now Soshi's kind of got, a little paycheck going on. And then, obviously, as happened with Shin-Ae, as happened with Dita, those friendships became real. And Soshi continues to do this service for him in that Kosuke doesn't hang around him. He's free to go out and do things without Kosuke on his back. He's able to have real friends and actually hang out with these people. Is there a transaction in this friendship? Sort of, but it's surpassed that. Shin-Ae is not in the state to actually, sit and ruminate on this and connect those dots. And even if she were, again, she's kind of at that slower processing. She's not really going to see those dots for what they are and connect them. But, it is kind of like that irony of her being the person who is like so self-righteously angry about this when she's the person who knows the truth about how and why Noel befriended these people in the first place.
Right. And I think Noel is probably truthfully the most comfortable with Soshi's friendship out of everyone because of the way that their relationship mirrors each other.
Yes. Also because Soshi is the one who has a little more insight into his life, and he doesn't really have to explain things. And like you said, Soshi plays mediator, and that's really necessary.
Yeah, I don't know if Soshi needs to take accountability to everyone else, because the person that he is actually theoretically hurting really doesn't. He really is being accountable to that person. I think the most probably that he could do is, again, just sort of have an honest conversation and acknowledge how everyone else feels about it. Acknowledge why Shin-Ae is so self-righteously crashing out about it.
Right. And that's why I refer to it as her self-righteous anger, because it's you're angry on Noel's behalf, but mostly you're angry because you're already wound up and angry and you just need a punching bag, and you've decided that, so she did something that you think is bad, and now you're just going to fight him about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Yeah. Do you guys have anybody else who you think possibly needs, or
who at this point in time, with what they've done so far, you'd like to kind of hear our thoughts on what accountability would look like for them?
Actually, I do. Oh. Shin-Ae towards Dita.
Oh, that's a good specific one.
Our girl.
I think she falls into another similar camp as some other people of stop it.
Yeah, stop it. But also, especially in her case, Acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it. And like really, really reflect
Yes.
on how much you might not have meant it, but you did do it.
You took advantage.
Yes.
You really pushed things. You made him say something that was
Oh.
painful. Like, when I just can't get over when, like, he's trying to keep her from getting, like, police brutality'd after Noel turns himself in. And, like, he's out here, like, I'm worried about you. You're really worked up. You need to calm down. She's accusing him of not caring enough. And then she's like, why are you so worried about me in the first place? And it's like,
Yeah.
girl.
I think she was either a sincere and reflective apology.
Yes. Like, and we acknowledge that, she wasn't saying these things to be hurtful. Again, she's slow on the uptake. She's a little slow on processing. Her crushy-wushy just got taken away. He threw her words back at her, and he
gave
looked
her the
really hot
smolder.
doing it. He gave her the smolder, and it really did things to her. She's feeling some things right now. Dita, you're in my way. Move. And it's just, girl.
Dita, you are currently just an obstacle,
Yes!
not a person.
And, like, the irony being, like, she had, Noel had that conversation with her where it's like, do you think those feelings just vanish? And, like, this whole time, we're realizing that Shin-Ae's just like, yeah, I thought he got over me. It's like, babes, you went on an amusement park date with him. You literally had that moment at the Christmas party where he's trying to compliment you and you're both getting blushy. You called his hand sexy in front of everyone.
Oh God, she did.
She did. Like, it's like,
yeah. She needs to take a moment and take a step back and really look at the way that they've been interacting versus the way that she actually feels and the ways that she has been kind of taking advantage of how much he's willing to do for her because he likes her so much without her even realizing that that's what she's doing.
How much she's turned him into an emotional blanket.
Yes. And also probably the way that she's going to feel abandoned once he puts up boundaries and stops doing it. She needs to be able to reflect on all of that and acknowledge it and apologize to him for it and rebuild a relationship that's more equal.
Yes. Iconic Hawk mentions Nana to Nessa. We did kind of lump her with Rand when we were talking about how, like, both Rand and Nana have things that they how did you phrase it, Elle? How they both have things that they are accountable for towards Nessa, and how, obviously it's too late for that. But, like, they have that very unique relationship with each other where they both have done things to harm Nessa and really ruin their relationships with her and push her away, and how in doing that they both put her into these positions where it allowed her to get caught up in the harm that she did, and that had they not done those things to her, she wouldn't have ended up in those, in this position in the first place. And go on.
If you can finish your sentence.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, unfortunately, with the fact that Nessa is, dead, there's not a lot that Nana can do to be accountable anymore. Obviously she is trying to be accountable for it in the way that she is raising Noel and taking care of him. We see that she pays a lot of attention to mental health, that she's very aware of, like, his depression, that she tries really hard to keep him from locking himself away, and she wants him to rely on others more. She wants him to have that community and rely on his friends, the people who actually are there for him.
And she's trying to keep Nessa's memory alive for Noel. We see that too, where she's really the only person who's willing to talk about her with Noel and willing to have things that overtly reminds them of her. Where Rand's got his things, but he's kind of hiding that they're about Nessa. And I think in the way that we said that Rand's accountability would be being a good father to Noel, or at least like part of it, when she's dead, Nana's accountability very much is the way that she is raising Noel. And I think that Nessa would feel a sense of reparation from that. I think
Yes.
true accountability from Nana would have been before Nessa died, having the
Seeking her
ability to,
out.
yeah, seeking her out, putting aside that pride and stubbornness, and finding her daughter, the one who she knew was in a spot where she needed her,
Hmm.
and coming back and apologizing for casting her out that way, and giving her giving her the space to decide if she's interested in repairing that relationship and coming back together or not.
Right. Giving her the space to talk about it, period.
Yeah.
Because, like the first, she just, as far as we can tell, she just immediately kicks her out. She doesn't
That's
she
it.
doesn't allow Nessa to give an explanation. She doesn't allow her to, try to explain how this happened. For all we know, Nana might have thought like not only did she go and get an abortion, but she had an affair with a married man.
Mhm.
Whereas, we are led to believe, or we infer that Rand led her to believe that, he's in the process of divorcing, he's leaving her, and clearly that never happened. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what accountability should have been, but right. Raising Noel and importantly trying to keep him safe.
Yeah.
Nana is
Really right.
very right, like Nana's very, very overt in the way that she is willing to go head to toe with, or go toe to toe with
Yeah.
Yui, and that she sees through Yui, importantly.
And we also see that Nana has done the reflection.
Mhm,
She's very open in her guilt, and she at this point is very open in the ways that she did wrong by Nessa, and she's acknowledging it and she's letting herself feel it at the same time as she is raising Nessa's son and doing so much to try to keep him safe.
right. And importantly, Nana doesn't really she doesn't shy away from the fact that she's the reason that that relationship's strained.
Mhm.
Like when she talks about how like she wishes that she had actually put her pride aside and actually reached out to her, when she laments that she didn't even bother trying that, like that is her being very raw and real about it, instead of trying to, continue to deny or say, to try to come assuage her own guilt and feelings about what she did.
Mhm.
I like how the chat has just straight up been Juliet's gif of Eugene and the smolder this entire time that we're talking
Why
about Nana's guilt and regrets.
why is Eugene such a prominent character in the Q&As?
That's a good question.
Is
He
it
did
the
come up in the
smolder?
last one. The last one was because one of us said Eugene and it
Eugene.
sounded like Eugene, but
Eugene.
like
And sometimes the YouTube captions saying Eugene as Eugene.
oh no.
Pretty
He's like
often, actually.
He's like the other mascot of Tea with Trashellie. Oh
Oh
no.
no.
Oh no. You
No.
can't steal our thunder, Eugene.
And
This
it's
isn't your
specifically
show.
him smoldering because the edit was also the smolder.
Oh god.
Okay, is there anyone else that we feel like we need to talk about there?
That little brat boy, the little buddy. We don't have no.
I think he's doing great.
Unfortunately, yeah. Oh, you mean little buddy. I thought you meant the kid. Little buddy's doing great. Tutting out and attacking people.
Yeah. Um, I think accountability for anyone involved with Little Buddy is honesty and integrity.
And some punishment.
And a little bit of scratching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of little buddy, a very interesting thing I noted when we have, after Noel has left the party and little buddy is basically like tailing him through the neighborhood, like a couple times it depicts him as like purring, like as he's just like traipsing around. I'm like, are you purring because that's your buddy now? Lemon Shark. I think Dita is very suspicious of Kosuke, and for good reasons. When he sees him and Shin-Ae together at the arcade, he noticeably tenses, and Kimchi kind of puts him in the position the reader was in not long before. Because we just saw Kosuke directly connected to Shin-Ae and Noel, it's been made crystal clear to us how he sees Shin-Ae. But Dita doesn't know it yet. And he's a smart boy. He feels something is up with his family. Why wouldn't he think that Kosuke is part of the problem? Also, now that the gang is unraveling the Yui conspiracy and Kosuke spirals further, I do believe it might lead to more conflict or an unexpected plot point. Mostly, I think Dita was jealous. Because Dita out of the group seems the one who seems to actually see Kosuke in a slightly more positive light. Or like at least he's the one who is able to compliment him more freely.
Yeah, I think Dita, kind of similar to Shin-Ae, but not to the same extent, is pretty good at seeing the value in people even when they're not great at conveying it.
And also, we do acknowledge that Dita is the friend who has the least experience with the Hiraharas. Obviously, he would have been around when Noel was being babysat by Kosuke. But, because he's also the one who's like, yeah, after Soshi started hanging out with us, he stopped hanging out. He probably thought Soshi was a little too annoying and boisterous. So like, yeah, like when I really think he was jealous of Kosuke when he sees them at the arcade because, something Dita does with the guys in Shin-Ae's life is he's kind of constantly measuring himself against them. He even kind of measures himself against Minhyuk, but we especially see it against Noel, right? Like, what was it? I wish she'd say like she'll break my legs or something, like he wants that easy banter.
Yeah.
And Shin-Ae does have a very peculiar relationship with Kosuke. She's not like the other girls are around him. And it's like, what is going on there? Why is she at the arcade with him when they should be at work?
I think Dieter is very sensitive to relationship dynamics.
Yeah.
So I think he does get jealous of Noel and he gets a little jealous of Kosuke. And I think a lot of the other times that he reacts to Kosuke is that he can feel the tension in the room and he reacts to that, where I think I very much don't think that he knows or understands what that tension is, but he's reacting to the feeling of it.
Especially when Shin-Ae's reaction to seeing Dita and Soshi at the arcade too is to run over to them immediately and be like, oh, thank God you guys are here. Because, then it is like, if this isn't a date, then what is going on? What is Kosuke up to? I don't think it's necessarily I know there's something up with this family way, but more like, in that moment, like Elle said, kind of picking up on that tension, picking up on that dynamic and what's happening,
Yeah, like, I mean, like, how many times have you walked into a potentially dysfunctional family's house and been a little uncomfortable by the tension that you can feel, and you're like, there's something wrong here. I don't know what it is. I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know if it's anyone's specific fault. I don't know. All of you might be fine and lovely people on your own, but there's just something weird about this, and I can't say I'm comfortable.
Shin-Ae walking down the hall with the empty cookie basket, hoping for a refill, and she catches dad trying to yell at Meg, and mom's
No.
like, "You have a guess."
Mm-hmm.
And just being like, "Oh, what's going on here? Hi, we need more cookies." But yeah, I don't think Dita is necessarily suspicious of him though. Like I do feel like he of all of the friends is the one who like sees him in the most favorable light, just because right, like Elle said, he's a lot like Shin-Ae in the sense that he can kind of see like who the person really is underneath everything. Listen, Dita is just very skilled, okay? Like, don't forget that the first time he headlocks Kosuke, he's literally apologizing to him.
Like, I'm so sorry.
Oh god, that was so fun.
Yeah,
I just love that, and how like they're like, go get Dita, and Kosuke's like, I'm not scared of some weak German boy, and then Noel is like instantly on his knees, like fully like
I'll be good.
informed. It's like, I'll be good, and then Kosuke's like, what? I love the balance of like humor and absolute tension in that part of that arc.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so looking at, this is a little meta moment for us, but looking at our time, we are booked for another up to an hour and a half.
Oh god.
We have two more questions. How do we want to handle this?
Oh my god, we do. I forgot about our bonus question.
We were really hoping to end early and not go to 3 a.m. for the after pod, but I fear.
I fear. Okay, I was gonna say, do you think we can keep this next question short? And it's like, no, we can't. We're going to start.
That's gonna tell them. It fits really well after everything we've been talking about.
And then we're going to start adding explanations and
I
getting elaborate.
Don't feel like it's a short one.
It'll be a whole hour of us.
Yeah.
Let's save that for our next Q&A, and then we can do Ren's bonus question.
So tune in next time to find out what the question that we were kind of excited about that ties really well as a segue from the previous question that we can't talk about now because we won't have any time will be.
We do have some good questions and topics coming up, so we will be working on our Tea with Trashellie schedule so that oh my god, who just left us? So that we won't actually, have to wait a super long time for more episodes.
Yeah. We've got stuff planned. We've got more questions. We're excited about part 3.
And then hopefully,
we originally thought this was only going to be part 1.
And hopefully, as I Love You returns, we're going to start getting like more content that we can be like, oh my god, I'm so excited to talk about this and make an episode about this. Mm-hmm. Full disclosure, we're kind of feeling out our pacing right now just because we don't want to run out of ideas. But now that people are giving us a lot of like thoughts, we have like one question somebody gave us that we're pretty sure we can make into a
episode on.
Actually, we've got a couple of those now.
Yeah.
So I think we're in good standing. And again, as you guys have more suggestions and ideas for episodes, just for things that you would love for us to sit and talk for, ideally 2 hours. Remember when that pod was supposed to be 2 hours long?
Yeah. I do.
Again, keep putting things into submissions because that is where we get a lot of our ideas. Sometimes we read an episode and we're like, I want to talk about this. But we also don't really do episode analysis as, podcast episodes. Occasionally it has happened if it's something that we're like, we got to talk about this and we got to talk about this right now. But mostly it's kind of like, thoughts from you guys. Start doing panel analysis.
I'm not panels I could analyze, but I'm not.
Here's my thing, right? I'm not entirely opposed to doing kind of like episode recap analysis. The problem is sometimes you get an episode where it's like, I don't feel like I can talk about this a lot, you know?
It's got to be purposeful.
Right, which is why we don't do it as a consistent thing. I feel like as we go into, you know, the return of I Love You, we might start getting to a point where we will have more episodes where we can actually get on the pod and gush about things. I don't want to promise that's a thing we will do, but you know, we are clearly always very excited to just talk I love you. So, you know.
Yeah. And we'll talk about anything that we feel like we want to talk about.
Right. So, you know, we might get an episode where like we got to talk about this. This thing finally happened. We're going to sit and talk about it. Or, you know, it gives us reveals where we're like, yes. Information that we can't talk
have
about.
Much to say for certain episodes, but your track record says otherwise. Uncalled for, Juliet.
Shh. Don't call us out. What's the word I'm trying to look for? Classified information tells me we might have some episodes coming up where we could
definitely have things to say.
Yes, where we'll be like crashing through the wall like the Kool-Aid man. All right, guys, let's fucking talk about this.
Yeah.
So, I feel very confident about season 2 of Tea with Trashellie.
I'm excited for it.
Me too. Like, I will let
you back.
Yes. Like, I'll admit, season 1, we got to a point where we were like, I don't want to say we were struggling to come up with ideas, but it was getting difficult to have ideas that we could dedicate whole episodes to. But I'm feeling technically it started with the first Q&A.
Yeah, I'm marking the start as the first Q&A, and this is like, okay, now we know what season 2 looks like.
Yes.
The first Q&A was the pilot episode for season 2.
Yes. I mean, this is like officially our first season 2 episode as far as live episodes go, but yes, the pilot episode of season 2 was the Q&A.
Structure where you record it way before the rest of the season, you will kind of know what's going on. It's a little disjointed, but you post it at the same time as the rest.
It feels a little disconnected. There's something weird about the cast, but you just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. First Q&A was the pilot of season 2.
But yeah, I'm especially because, you know, we still have a lot of these questions. We have questions that we can make into full episodes. I'm like, yo, we got some stuff. Also, we have this one question that has to go into Q&A 3 that I feel like we want to answer sooner rather than later.
Yes. I feel like we'll probably do Q&A 3 fairly soon, and then we'll
Oh God, you stepped on the tablet with your fur.
No.
Okay.
It's okay.
Before
my phone at one point and I had to go pick it up.
Oh, God. No, not the keyboard. Okay. Before we go into our final bonus question from Ren, I'm calling for another potty break.
Okay. I think
okay.
That's a good separation point.
Yes. Everybody, go potty or get a snack. Definitely go potty.
Okay. So we have one bonus question from Rin, who also did our edit on the last podcast. Thank you, Rin. We love you. You're the best.
Shout out to you, Rin, our favorite little rat.
Who is also the person who overhauled the I Love You wiki, who is now allowing us to give her credit for that. So credit where credit is due. She is doing incredible things for this community.
Absolutely check out the I Love You wiki if you have any questions about anything. You want to know what episode a character appeared in? Wiki's got you. You want to know what episode a flashback was in? Wiki's got you. You remember that there was a flashback that involved these characters, but you're not really sure where it was? Go look up that character, go look up episodes, and you can like see a synopsis of every single episode that this character has appeared in. The Wiki's got you. It is so good.
It is comprehensive right now, and it is wonderful. this is also the same person who made an archive of all the various I Love You theories. So she's killing it.
Absolutely incredible work. Ren, you are carrying the fandom on your little back.
And speaking of little backs, her question is where, similar to how, and potentially inspired by how last episode we got asked to rate each of the characters on a scale from cat to dog, she has asked, where would you rate each character on a scale from rat to mouse?
Alyssa's a mouse. I'm just going to start there.
Yes.
She's a mouse. She's
She's a
small.
mouse.
She's meek. She's docile. She's a mouse.
She's a mouse. And she's like, she's pretty, you know.
She's pretty. She's cute. She's got, like picture her with like a cute little bow sitting on the top of her head and her cute little ears and her little beady eyes. Oh, she's so cute. She's so cute.
Rats are cute too, but we're thinking like the the
It
typical
depends.
society cute.
It depends. We're going to have a scale here, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have like the middle where we start shifting into rat. That's going to be like where we have our cute rats. They're bigger rats. They're a little more powerful, We're going to start working down the line. We're going to have, oh my God, what was his name? The rat that I had a crush on in Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. Justin.
That's a
oh my
wild
God.
to start with the rat I had a crush on.
Listen, everybody had a crush on Simba, but some of us had a crush on Justin, the rat from Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. Okay. And then we're going to like keep working our way down to, like giant New York rats who have no fear and are here for your, oh, that's such a cute rat gift. See, that's like our middle rat, like, oh, sweet little rat. Oh, I love
These are
rodents,
the things
you
we're
guys.
recording the chat for.
Yes. And eventually, at the very end, we are going to have, your scary little sewer rat who is missing patches of fur and has probably fought a crocodile at some point in life and won. Likewise, what does our scale for little mousies look like?
I feel like mice have a bit of a narrower scale than rats.
Right.
I feel like the mice scale is a little more individually descriptive.
Like, do you think mouse scale is more like we just get meeker and meeker?
I think it depends a little. Okay, we've got Alyssa.
Rin is correct. I did say Dita is a mouse.
Yes. And I think Dita is more of like a calm mouse. Like he's not so much a meek mouse.
Yes, I was gonna say he's more towards that middle. He's not really a rat, but he's definitely, a cute little cuddly mousy that somebody has like as a little pet. And, he's really sweet and cuddly. I love mice, guys. Noel's got to be a rat of some kind.
Yeah, he's a rat. And he's like he's not like a sewer rat, like a New York sewer rat, where he's not like outwardly and overtly survivalist, but
he's scrappy.
He's a little scrappy. He's kind of like maybe he's sort of like kitchen rat-y in demeanor.
Yeah. Like he's not quite this cute rat Fia scent because this is clearly like a pampered, pet rat. He is the rat who like sneaks in and eats your cracker crumbs and, whatever else you've left on your kitchen floor.
He's jumbo size.
Exactly. Like that is partly why I was like, he's a rat. Like he's not small enough to be a mouse.
That boy is too large to be a mouse.
Juliet did send the emote, so we're going to go there. The obvious. Rand is in fact a rat.
Absolutely. That is our Rand rat.
He's huge, but a rat caught in a maze.
He is the largest of the rats.
Rand has classified him as a naked mole rat.
Mole rat.
Despite all of his rage, he's still just a rat in a cage.
Yep.
Which is, where all of this really began. Rand Rat. You would know this if you join our server, by the way. Rand Rat is kind of our mascot around here. We love him. Some people fear him, but mostly we love him. He is a rat in a cage, Yui's cage, obviously. And despite all that rage, what can he really do? Jumbo rat, but he still can't break out.
Yep. What more can you say?
Yui's also a rat, but she's not like...
She's
not at that extreme end because,
she's like a very pampered, pretty rat, but
yes,
she is a
far
nasty
too smart
rat.
for yes, and far too smart for her own good.
Yes.
She escapes her cage all the time. Sorry, Rand.
She's a nightmare of a personality, beautiful rat.
Bites all the other rats. She actually has to be isolated in her own cage. She started way too many fights. She bites all the male rats. It's awful. Yui is a rat, but everyone thinks she's a mouse. You kind of got a point. Yui's kind of thinking through deceptive imagery. Fancy rat. Yeah. Fancy rat who she bites all the time. I just have this image in my head of her biting other rats and having to be isolated.
She bites anyone who takes her out.
Oh my god, bites the hand that feeds her for sure.
Yeah. You can open the door and she can walk out, but don't you dare touch her.
Absolutely not. And if you're feeding her, you gotta drop the food in there. Don't you dare ever try to hand feed her.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kosuke is a mouse. He wishes he was a rat.
He thinks he's a rat.
He thinks he's a rat. He tries to hang out with the rats, and the rats
he was
are
born to 2 rats, and somehow he came out a mouse.
Because he wasn't actually born to 2 rats. He was born to a rat and a mouse, but we're not going to get into that. Yeah, he definitely he hangs out with rats and he tries to act like rats. He thinks he's as big as rats. He's not. He's definitely too delicate to be a rat. It's true.
He's in a whole family of rats and he's the mouse.
Yeah. Yep. If they had to,
and that's
they would.
Why Daddy doesn't love him.
No. If they had to, they could absolutely sneak into the kitchen to eat those cracker crumbs. Kosuke Mouse, who thinks he's a rat, absolutely could not.
Nope.
The thought of even escaping his cage, oh my god, he could never. Daddy would get so mad at him.
Yes, he's very much a little pet mouse.
Oh my god, yes. So pampered.
Little Victorian child.
He is literally a Victorian little mousey. That's him. Shin-Ae's also a little mouse, but she's she's not as delicate as Kosuke Mouse, and she's not
a little bit of a mouse.
Yeah, she's more towards the center than even Dita is because she's got that fight in her. She, much like Kosuke, she kind of acts like a rat, except unlike Kosuke, she can pull it off a little better. I mean, she still doesn't have the size going for her, but she has the attitude, and that's what matters. She's like Oliver from Oliver and Company. Sure, he's a tiny little kitten. He's not the same size as these dogs he's hanging out with, but he has the personality. He's got the attitude. That's Shin-Ae as a mouse.
But not the audacity.
Definitely not the audacity. A mouse with rat attitude. Exactly. Oh, I love this. This is so silly. Ren, are you going to search for little images that you think suit our little mousy and rat friends? She would eat pizza off the floor. Oh, yes. And she'll be with the rats. The rats are going for it, and there she is. Pizza Rat's gonna drag that in, and she's gonna be right there.
And that's literally what else was she doing when she was almost gonna kill Noel over the fried chicken? That is Mouse Shin-Ae going up against Pizza Rat.
Right, you're right. You're absolutely right. David and Goliath who? This is cute little mousey versus rat. So it feels bad to call him a rat after we just got through saying that like his being an informant is clearly a favor to Noel.
No, he is though, and he's a
rat.
little rat.
Yeah,
Like, he's not a big rat. He's a little rat.
but he is scrappy. You know.
Yeah.
He got into a lot of fights. He
And
didn't
he's a rat
win
with
them.
integrity.
What was that?
He's a rat with integrity, but he's still a rat.
Yeah. He's scrappy. He can't win the fights, but you know he tries.
Mm-hmm.
And then little Kosuke Mousy is like, I can't fight these rats, but my family has a lot of really good food, and I'll pay you off if you leave this little shrimp mouse be. Oh my god, it's a soggy little mouse.
Oh, no!
Oh,
no. Soggy mouse.
Soggy wet mouse.
You came back with that so fast and so deliberate.
Kosuke, there is a soggy, wet animal for you everywhere we look. This is beautiful. Oh god. Nana feels like she's a rat. I mean, like, Nana literally fought, and I always forget the acronym.
Yeah, and again, like, she's like a little rat, but she's a rat who can hold her own.
Oh yeah, she's like that little rat who, like, you see her getting ganged up on big rats, and you're like, oh no, this poor little rat. But then, like, next thing you know, like, she's knocked out these rats, and you're like, what the fuck happened? How did she do that?
Absolutely.
She also bites other rats, but only if they deserve it. Nessa, though, I feel like, I'm really torn. Was she like a really scrappy mousy who was like right on the edge of being a rat? Like, Nessa immediately says rat. You're right, Nessa rat.
I need to call Nessa a rat because of Nessa rat.
You're right.
Keep drawing images of Rat thinking about Nessa rat and not call her a rat.
Yeah, we have a canon to stick
think
to.
About Remy's dad for some reason.
Oh my gosh.
And Nessa rat is like,
here's Randrat and Nessa rat. For our viewers, they will be.
The server now.
They're not gonna join. No, please join, I promise.
It's not usually this scary.
And when she had a lot of fun with this one.
And she and like Nessa rat is like, why do I feel like she's kind of Rufus-y?
Yes. Actually, like, okay, you know, Julia. I was gonna say, honestly, like, Youngie is definitely Rufus-y, which makes sense then that Nessa would also be Rufus-y. I loved Rufus so much. He was like my favorite character. So like, this is A+. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
Goofy, playful, could really, really throw down some nachos, tachos. Oh no, everyone's gonna leave. Please join the server.
Please join the server.
We have so much
really
fun.
Great advertising so far, and now we've tanked all of it.
We have so much fun, guys. That's what matters.
Okay, more people. The parks.
Oh, see, now I'm like, Minhyuk's also Rufus-y, isn't he? But they are mice.
I think Minhyuk's a rat. Well, I think Minhyuk could be a rat. I think Maya's a mouse. I think Maya's definitely a mouse.
I think Minhyuk is yet another like mouse who wants to be a rat because he's always yearning to have the size that everybody else has.
I think Minhyuk's got a Rufus attitude.
Oh yes.
Yeah, he's like kind of rat-like.
Okay, this is yeah.
But
I just
I could agree with the whole Park family being mice.
Yeah, it feels right.
Yeah.
Mrs. Park is Mrs. Frisbee if she was a boy mom and not, a mom who is very concerned about saving her children's nests. As you can tell, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim really made an impression upon me. It is probably
Rin, that is
yes.
a very Park-coded photo.
Yes. That's that's Maya. Like looking at that, I'm just like, that's Maya.
Minhyuk is Remy's brother.
You're right though. You're right.
Like the Park family are all mice, but Minhyuk very much like he carries a lot of rat traits.
Does that mean Remy is like
is my only rat reference.
Does that mean like Remy is Maya if Remy was actually a baker and not, like a cook?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Listen,
Iconic Hawk, like we got Ratatouille and we got the Rats of Nim. Okay, these are our references. and Kim Possible. This is what we got going.
These are the important varieties of rats and mice.
Exactly.
Okay. Hansuke and Yujing.
I feel like Yujing is a rat because I think of rats as being very intelligent, clever little creatures, and also
she's a curious rat. She's a very intelligent rat.
And also, like, okay, I need you to know that Gus Gus and Jack Jack were like my absolute favorites as a child. So these two being Shin-Ae and Minhyuk, yes, absolutely yes. Once again, yes, I was molded by rodents. I grew up, I was clearly going to adore rodents. Did we said that Yujing is like a rat? Yes, because we said she bites all the other rats. So Yui, yes. So obviously Yujing has to remain a rat, but right, she's a curious rat. She's very clever and intelligent. Yeah. She knows how to scuttle about in the shadows.
And she's she knows, she's not biting the hand that feeds her, as opposed to Yui. Where Yui is more like she's playing with the things in her cage. She
likes enrichment activities, actually.
She likes enrichment activities.
Ren is doing a really great job at finding some rats and mice for us. Mm-hmm. People are finding really great gifts for us. This is incredible, you guys. But yes, you're right. Yujing, she likes her enrichment activities.
Yeah. And then, as the chat saying, Hansuke is a mouse.
Oh yes, he's definitely a mouse. Which is funny.
Who's enamored by the intelligent rat in the cage next door.
She's just got the shiniest fur that he's ever seen, and her tail is just so long and so pretty. And there's something about her sparkly little beady eyes that just sparkle extra more than all the other rats and their little beady eyes. Yeah. Oh yes, Yujing is definitely a
pampered mouse.
No, I mean I still feel like she's a rat. Like I just feel very strongly about that.
I think she's a very well provided for rat.
Yes, like she's very pampered. She's definitely somebody's treasured, precious pet. It's that the rat curiosity and intelligence is why I feel like she has to be a rat.
And it's not like mice are also very curious, but it's like the type of curiosity that she has feels more rat. Where it's like that, there was a word you used earlier that starts with an S that I want to drop on, but I cannot remember what it is. But it's that she's surveying her environment. She's
was it when I was talking about no, I don't know. Scuttling in the shadows.
Yeah, scuttling.
Yes.
Yeah, she's like a scuttling intelligence, or she loves her enrichment, but it's it's not curiosity so much as what's going on over here? It's curiosity more as in like, I'm solving my environment.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Dita could be like a nice little hamster. I've never heard of a teddy.
Oh.
Rin, what the hell? Listen, we have kept this to rats versus mice because if we start getting into rodents, period, it's all over. We got sugar gliders, we got squirrels, we got chipmunks, everything that I adore. We would like go off on a whole tangent.
We gotta just finish rats and mice.
Because Minhyuk would be a squirrel.
Oh, absolutely, he's a squirrel.
Absolutely. Hansuke would be a sugar glider. Like,
okay.
Absolutely.
We have till 3. No bet. We have
That's
until
the
11
after party.
For 2 more hours if you don't stick to rats and mice.
We obviously need to type Simhan. He feels like a really big rat. I mean, a really big mouse to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's also a mouse.
Yeah,
and I think
like
he's a larger mouse.
Yeah,
and he's a bit of a fumbly mouse.
Yeah, he's like a barn mouse that somehow made its way inside.
Yeah.
And not via my cat.
Oh no.
Yeah. I don't want Simhan mouse in my bed.
Oh no.
You don't need that experience again.
No.
Shin-Ae. Oh, Shin-Ae. Oh, wait. I was going to say rat, but then part of me is like mouse because like they're even harder to detect as you know, like they scuttle around and move through like all the holes. I mean, obviously rats can move through holes too.
I feel like she is a street mouse.
Oh, I'm so torn because she could be like a like a sewer rat.
Mm-hmm. I feel like whichever one
I do like street mouse.
Whichever one she is like, she's hanging in the gutters, she's hanging in the train tracks, she's hanging in the sewers.
Pizza Rat's got nothing on her.
No, but I do feel like she might be a mouse because she's like, first of all, she's kind of a reflection of Shin-Ae.
Yeah, she's got a like pass for Shin-Ae.
Yeah. And I feel like she's very like, the frame that she comes in is not the same as how her survival experiences have placed her. Where like she's born a mouse, and we see like little girl Shin-Ae is definitely different to adult Shin-Ae.
And she's forced to live like a street rat.
She's forced to live like a street rat, and she becomes a street mouse.
So she's a street mouse who acts like a rebellious rat.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's what she was forced into. Yeah.
Sangchul.
Oh god, Sangchul. Oh god. Sangchul. He feels like a mouse.
Yeah, I feel like he's a pathetic mouse.
He's a pathetic mouse. He's just a meek little mouse. He tries to intimidate other mice, but the moment that they like rear up, he runs away.
He's trying to pretend like he's a rat. All the rats want to hang out with him. He's acting like he should be a rat, and then the second you challenge him on anything, he just is such a mouse.
I mean, like, we already typed him as a nervous, shaky little chihuahua. He's definitely a pathetic little sad mouse. And I don't mean pathetic and like mice are pathetic. I mean, I love mice, and what's wrong with that mouse?
Yes.
Lemon Shark said, would you rather have a rat daughter or a mouse son? ¿Por qué no los dos? Like, you're forgetting I love both of these. You gotta specify, like, are we talking like sewer rat daughter versus pathetic mouse son? Are we talking mouse son who wishes he was a rat versus like pampered princess rat daughter? Okay.
I feel like I want a mouse daughter and a rat son.
Explain.
I want to see what Lemon is saying first. So the classic if L.
I love that somebody just like left at that moment. That was so funny.
They were like, I cannot tolerate that.
It's like, oh,
I just, and like, especially as we've been typing them, I feel like the mouse energy goes really well with daughter, and the rat energy goes really well with son. They
That's
didn't
why
want a
Lemon
rat
Shark
daughter
is
or a mouse
saying.
son.
That's why Lemon Shark is saying it's a classic. It's like saying, like.
I know.
So
I
what Elle's
feel...
really saying is she doesn't want a difficult child.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I feel
I'll
like
take a rat daughter.
I was about to say, I feel like with rat daughter versus mouse son, I would probably take a rat daughter. Especially considering that the rats that we've typed that are women are, like, they're more of like the curious, intelligent type rats, as
They
opposed...
also bite other rats. Don't
Only
forget
some
this.
of them. Elle doesn't want me. Oh no, Rin. I never said that I don't want any of them.
She said you would be too difficult for her. I just love the idea in my head that, like, yeah, the girl rats have, like, a biting problem.
They do. Listen, I too, as a child, had a biting problem.
They get a little nasty, but can you blame them? I bet a mouse son would be, like, so cuddly, though. Except
Oh,
Songchul,
probably.
because he's a nightmare.
I feel like if my mouse son is like Nita, sign me up.
Oh, yes, yes.
I don't see how this brilliant conversation could push anyone away.
Yeah, no, like, I said that as a joke. Like, I assume we're gonna edit it out anyway. Because, like, obviously people have been coming and going all night, so,
Yeah, and
like,
we understand that. We expect
yeah. It was just such funny timing that, like, I was like, actually, and they're like, fuck this, I'm out.
Wrong opinion.
That Elle's gone one opinion too far. This is the one opinion of hers I can't stand. I'm gone.
I can't wait for my hit piece.
But yeah.
And then I think the last character, at least like common character that we didn't type, is Jace.
Jace feels like a mouse.
I agree.
But like a big mouse.
And he's a mouse who's like, he's like...
Chat
like,
agrees, by the way.
What?
Chat agrees.
Oh yeah. He's not a meek mouse. He's not like an overly confident mouse, but he's a mouse who's like, he's living his life.
Yeah. He's like what you think of when you think of like a pet mouse. But a big one.
Yeah.
We actually have left off somebody. Gun Kim is the ugliest rat that we've ever seen, and that feels painful to say because I love rats. They're so cute. But Gun Kim, he gives rats a bad name.
He's that rat that you look at that rat and you're like, there's something about this rat that makes me uncomfortable and it's not doing anything, but I just don't want to be in the room with it.
Fia says he's the New York giant rats. The rats that are like, why are you the size of a street cat? That's Gun Kim. Yes, Lemon Shark. Jace is a diligent and hardworking mouse. What is that, Julie? Yes. Oh my god, from the Princess Bride.
Yeah, Gun Kim is like a mutant rat. I wish New York was real.
Stop. Why is the sudsy rat kind of cute though? Look at those whiskers. But the photo makes him look tall. Oh god.
So
See, I promise you guys, we have fun.
me too. This was a fun way to end the official return of the Tea with Trashellie podcast for season 2. We have all of our characters as rats versus mice.
I'm so excited that we are now bringing you guys season 2 of Tea with Trashellie, not sponsored by Love Yoo Hirahara.
And I'm excited to offer a little bit more content too, now that we are theoretically recording and kind of showing the chat alongside so that people can follow along better and feel a little bit more involved and engaged. And I'm really excited for all of the ideas and topics that we have to talk about, as well as one of these days getting through all the questions that everyone submitted to us.
And once again, as a viewer, if you have any questions or ideas and topics that you would love to see us cover, you can always leave them in the comments to the videos, or you could join the server and drop them in our submission box.
Yeah. And if you feel like you just really enjoy experiencing this podcast with us and you want to help support it, we now have kind of a small team of people who help. We have Kiko, who does our artwork. We have Solidaritea, who did our jingle. We have Bombi, who does a lot of our thumbnails and image edits, and we have Rin, who's helped out with the editing. So if there's anything that you want to give to support our production and kind of help us give back to all of these people who have been helping us along the way, feel free to check out our coffee link in the description. There's no obligation to. This is a hobby podcast. We're here for fun. We're here because we enjoy it and we love it. But if you feel so inclined to give back to this amazing group of people who help us out, we would really appreciate it.
And to emphasize or to reiterate, we're not asking for the money for ourselves. We just want to be able to actually offer something to the people who are helping us out, especially the people who are putting in the time and effort to make the podcast more enjoyable for our viewers, because we understand that listening to a podcast without anything to look at isn't always the most enjoyable experience.
Especially
We really
for 4
would
hours.
Yes, we really would love to reach a point where we can add real captions to our videos as opposed to the auto captions, which we know are terrible. It's one
Or
of
even
those
just have
things.
some ability to edit them a little.
Yes, it's just unfortunately one of those things where, because this is a hobby podcast and because Elle and I ourselves are people who work long hours and don't have a lot of that free time available, it's not something that we ourselves can easily take on, and we would love to be able to reach out to somebody who can actually help with that, but it doesn't feel right to have somebody do that for free. So once again, these are the kinds of things that those donations would be covering.
Yeah. And as kind of a closer, thank you guys for coming back and hanging out with us again. And we look forward to talking with you all as I Love You returns at the end of October.
As you know, we will probably have so much to say about the upcoming episodes, so you will definitely be hearing from us again soon. And as a last reminder, if you want to be a part of the people who are sitting here and talking with us as we do this podcast, again, you can always join that server so that you can be here as we record this and participate in the conversations. Obviously, again, these conversations really bolster the episodes that we put together. We really appreciate the community, whether you are here as we're recording this or you're coming to us on YouTube or Spotify and listening to us whenever it's more convenient to you. We really appreciate you, and it means a lot that even after all this time, there are people who are still listening to us and people who have been waiting for us to return and people who are happy that we have returned. It means so much that this little hobby podcast that we put together because we can't shut up about I Love You has reached people and means something to you guys.
Even though we've been kind of on hiatus and MIA and gone from the podcast, we never forgot about it. We never forgot about you guys. And it just, like Ashley said, it means so much to us have everyone here and back here and so excited.
So thank you again for joining and thank you for returning. And we look forward to meeting you in many more episodes to come. This has been Tea with Trashellie.